I'm Anthony Shetler, and this is the All I Need Skate podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please let us know by subscribing, liking, and sharing an episode. Check out ALLiNEEDSKATE.com for epic skate videos of the crew, our skateboards, and apparel.
Hell yeah, AJ. Thanks for coming on the pod. A little salute again.
Hey, thank you. Salud.
Hell yeah. Stoked you're in town, man.
Oh yeah, man. I'm glad we were able to get this all worked out and stuff while I was in town. You know, this has just kind of worked out perfectly, you know?
Yeah, man. How I like to start this usually is just maybe just tell me. I mean, I've seen you in videos, magazines. I've been watching your Instagram. I've been paying attention, but let's start at the beginning with like maybe how did you grow up and how did you find skating?
Okay.
And where?
And where?
Yeah.
I got you. Well, I guess I'll start with that. With where is I'm from Pennsylvania, and I'm from a rural part of Pennsylvania. It's called rural Coopersburg. Is where I'm from. So
Nice.
It's like it's not too far away from like Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area, so the ABE area, which a lot of skaters have come from as well. And there's a lot of good clips from like, you know, the first Toy Machines videos with like Bam and Kerry and all them, Lehigh University.
I went through there when I rode for Fibro. We do demos and stuff.
Oh, right on. Yeah, well, Danny's from that way
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Danny Pencil. I mean, Danny grew up.
Iron ass.
Yeah, tell me about it. No, so I would run into Danny and all those guys down there, like him and Ray Gers and Andy Mack and Steve and all those guys. They're all from the neighboring areas. But I lived in more of the rural area, so it's like a lot of farms where I'm from, like the covered bridges. That's like kind of the area I'm from. And, you know, it's funny. I just went back there, I don't know, maybe about a month ago for work. And I was driving through and I actually passed my old house, and everything is the exact same that it was.
That's always a trip.
Ago.
Yeah.
No, it was totally a trip because everything else outside of that like area has been being built up and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
And that whole area over there is all kind of protected. So it's like all protected farms. And a lot of my friends, I went back for my 25th high school reunion. And of course it was in a barn.
Yeah.
But like a lot of them inherited their family's farms, or they bought other farms that were being, you know, they were going to be subdivided into like apartments and whatnot, and they bought it and they're farming the land and they're doing all that stuff. So that's where I'm more or less from, is kind of rural Coopersburg area. So like the only thing that was out there is we had like paved roads, but they're not smooth macadam like you guys have out here. They were a little bit on the rougher side. So it was like they put like tar down and they would sprinkle like granite on top of it, or, you know, granules on top, so it was rideable, but every time you rode there was things popping up.
I've skated that. Like I used to go to Maine, and that was our front road basically.
That's a great way of describing it. So it's similar to that. So that's where I started. I started out in the back of my my dad's garage. He made a little dog run that was maybe 4 foot wide and I don't know, maybe 20 foot long, and my dad was in landscaping and construction. So he had all these pallets and whatnot, and we always had building materials. So I was just making curbs or ledges or like makeshift rails out of like cinder blocks and like a signpost. You know what I mean? That type of stuff.
That's the funnest shit.
Yeah. So I mean, it was also the most dangerous stuff, and I'm glad I did it back then because I was able to take the falls and keep on going. But yes, so that's where I started growing up, just skating there. And then when my mom would go into town for going shopping and things like this, she would say, hey, you know, you want to go and skate something smoother? And I'm like, yeah. So she'd go in the shopping, and then I'd skate the little shopping area. So like parking lot skating was a lot of the formation of my skating.
And winter too.
And what's that?
We're dealing with winter too.
Oh yeah, winter.
People forget about that.
Oh yeah, no, and it's crazy because back then we would skate in all the parking lots that were like plowed, and my dad did plowing as well. So my dad would tell us like where the places were plowed already.
Yo, sick.
And then
inside scoop.
Exactly, we get the inside scoop, and we'd go there and we'd be like, yo, this one's dry. Or we would find there was this one office building that had kind of like a veranda outside. So it was like, you know, kind of like when you go into a hotel and you pull in and there's like that overhang.
Yeah.
This was like that, but it had like a little plaza there, and we get kicked out of there, of course, all the time. But usually when it snowed and my dad plowed that one, we were able to get in. We were able to get in maybe an hour before the security or guard would come in and be like, hey, you guys got to go. And so, you do what you can, or you'd skate in your garage, or other people's garages or their basements if they had a full basement.
We did that.
You did that
we
too?
fucked up my friend Dale, who got me into skating. We fucked up his mom's washing machine for sure. Like board shooting out, like just smashing that thing over and over again.
Yeah, we did that. It was similar. We didn't do the washing machine, but my friend had an old house, and the boards would shoot off. He had like a little curb underneath there, so we're doing like stalls. We're playing games. Of skate.
Wait, in his basement?
In his basement,
dude, a curb in your basement?
He had a curb in his basement. So, and it was one of those. It was just tall enough so we duck when we landed on it because it was like there. But his board shot out, and it was the old plaster walls, so it hit, and like the whole plaster would come down and stuff. So we ended up having to go back that later on, I think in that spring or summer, and we had to replaster her wall. But
solid move.
Yeah, but that was the thing. But yeah, we would do that, and then we once in a while, when it was more of a treat, because they didn't really have skate parks where I'm from. So we had Shimerville, which was in Emmaus, which was right outside of Allentown. So my grandparents lived up that way. So it's called this little park called Shimerville. And some of the big guys would come through there. Like I met Mike Frazier was there.
What?
And Neil Hendricks showed up.
What?
Yeah. And
dude, both of those guys.
And that was when Mike had hair. So like Mike walked in, and Neil had like the striped
chest
shirt.
hair?
No, he had this, no, not chest hair. He had the, like those rugby shirts that he used to wear with those big stripes. And they came in, and I remember we were talking to the guy in the skate shop, and this guy Jeff McDermott, and Mike Frazier walks in. He's like, "Hey, can we go skate the vert ramp?" And they're like, "Yeah, just go ahead." And I'm like, "Who?" I was like, "Who was that?" Because he looked like he knew what he was doing. And he's like, "Oh, that's Mike Frazier." And I'm like, I knew who Neil Hendricks was because of New Deal videos.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't know who Mike Frazier was. And then I went out and I learned who Mike Frazier was right quick.
He's fucking good. Yeah.
Dude, he was killing it. And then and that was a small vert ramp. It was like a old school transition, so it was like these elliptical transitions and went right to vert. And so it was really tight. And
wait, what do you mean elliptical? Like,
oh, not elliptical, excuse me. Elliptical is when that's how they're made now.
Yeah,
these were circular transitions.
Oh, okay,
so they were made from a circle and cut from there. So the old ramps would shoot you straight up, and if you popped out too hard, you would go to flat bottom.
Yeah.
So now they do elliptical ones so that you're shot like kind of up over the coping more.
Yeah,
so
that makes
it's a little
sense.
bit more safe. So instead of it being a 12-foot ramp, it's usually about a 13.5 foot, but
Yeah.
they call that 12-foot. So
have you been to Substance Skate Park in Brooklyn?
I have not been there yet.
They got a cool vert ramp.
I heard my friend Pete Petty works over there, and I knew when Substance was a skate company back in the day, like Harvey and all those guys, and Raphael Murphy and all those guys used to ride for them.
Hell yeah.
But I haven't been able to get over there yet. But no, I've seen it, and it looks a lot of fun.
It's rad.
But that's those. It's like small, like it was a little bigger than that ramp that's in there.
Yeah.
And then we had Cheapskates, which was kind of the famous / infamous Cheapskates. So,
I remember Cheapskates. I never went there, I don't believe, but I've seen it in videos and people talk about it. And
it was a gnarly place, man. It was. Talk about cutting your teeth in that. I mean, I remember because J.R. Neves was there.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, and J.R. is like a year or two younger than me, and I remember seeing him there, and he was just like everybody who skated there. They were just intense. They were just the next level. Like they were just like very aggro and like growly and just like, you spent your money to go there. And back then it was like $10. So this was like in the early 90s, so $10 back then. Today it's like it's like 20 something,
Yeah.
And it didn't guarantee that you got to skate the park because all the locals would snake you if they didn't think you were up to it. And
that's so funny and true. True.
It was, and it was just East Coast, and so the one section they had was all ramps. So they had a bowl, a 6-foot spine that went into the bowl, 12-foot vert ramp, and then they had this little quarter pipe that was in between those ramps, and then next to that was a 3-foot ramp, which was nice and laid back, and then there was the one that they made all the newbies learn how to drop in on, and it was a U.
Oh shit.
No flat bottom on it, and they're like, you have to learn how to drop in on this first. So like guys like JR and the Shupakis brothers and all them, they'd be like, you got to go over there and skate that. And so I was like, yeah, I could drop in. Good. Now you have to do rock to fakie. Once you get to rock to fakie, then you can come and skate with us. So needless to say, I had bruises down from my hip all the way down on both sides.
Yeah.
But I was able to skate the cool kids ramp then.
That's intense. No flat is so intense.
No, it was straight up just a U, and then that was the one section, and then the other section they knocked down the wall, and there was like a street section there.
Yeah.
And they had some movable obstacles, but they even had like a fire hydrant, like they had a curb cut out with a fire hydrant on top.
Classic.
That was back in the day, and but you'd see all sorts of guys coming in there. So JR, we used to skate with. I mean, rest in peace. I mean, I miss that dude. I remember growing up skating.
Frontside flips.
Oh, dude, he was a natural. Like he just had it. And to be honest, I mean, when we first met, he was he was there like trying to test you and whatnot. And I remember we played a game of skate, and I held my own with him. And then ever since that day, he respected me, and we just like every time we saw each other, say, "Hey, what's up?" And he was a cool dude. Like it's a shame he went so early, but
yeah, man.
But he was good people. And then we'd see guys like Tom Boyle was always there.
Wow, so good.
Barker Barrett was there. Barker was like the.
Did he skate the U thing? He probably murdered that.
Oh, dude,
his training skills are fucked.
He was one of those, like, he'd go across a 6-foot ramp and do like 4 tricks in one pass, and then come up and then go. He'd do like a half cab blunt and then go into the bowl and skate that, and then launch out of the bowl and then back in, and it was just like effortless skating. And I remember Barker was also a cool guy too. Like, Barker is very much an individual, and I like that about him.
I like that about people too.
Yeah, he's very authentic. There's nobody quite like Barker, And
that's sick to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and he's not like, at first you're a little bit intimidated because you're like, yo, dude, this freaking Barker Barrett, Shut Skates, like, Planet Earth, like he rode for all these companies, but he was really down to earth, and he gave me some of the best advice when I was first coming up skating, and I've told him this before too, is that he said, skate it like you know it, because he would see us skating like in like our neighborhoods, like we'd skate Quakertown a lot, and he actually got a Thrasher picture at like one of our local spots.
What?
And we're just like, yo, he did the stair set, like, oh man, like we were just like so hyped because we were just learning how to do all that stuff, and he actually skated our spots. So he was just always telling us, he's like, yeah, skate it like you know it. He's like, if you skate a bank in the streets, think about these banks here as the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with transitions. He's like, all it is a steeper bank. He's like, just skate it like you know it, and it'll come to you.
Solid advice.
Yeah. So guys like him, and then of course the Sigafus brothers, Jay and Ken. Ken is a little bit older than I am, but Jay's also older than me, but Jay was the younger of the two. And I remember skating with Jay, whether it was at Cheapskates or Shimerville or
two things before we go forward.
Sure.
Cheapskates, did they have mail order? Did they do a mail order too?
There was a mail order group that did Cheapskates, right?
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't know if it was the same company or not, but there was East Coast Cheapskates, and then there was that one.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I think they were at one time, and then they split.
Okay.
That's from what I understand.
And then Barker,
Yeah.
I just being a little kid in New England, in New Hampshire, fucking up my friend's his mom's washing machine.
Yeah.
Watching 4-in-1s and watching Barker.
Oh yeah.
And just being like, he was a legend, because everything on the mini ramp, we're like, how, so many NBDs and just shit that like, you know.
And what's crazy with him is too, he's built stockier.
Yeah,
He's not as tall about, but he's got broad shoulders, and he's built strong. And just like Tom Boyle was like that too. Tom was like a rock, that's why they called him the Rock, because he's built like Tom was more built like a wrestler, he was like a strong build. So you look at Barker and you're thinking, oh, this guy's just a hesh, just because of the way he's built. But he was super technical, really light on the feet. Like he had that back foot control. Like when you see good mini ramp skaters, if they have that back foot control, it's like they can do whatever they want. And I mean, he could revert any which way whenever he wanted, how he wanted, and that. So there was him, and then you had like Mean Gene, who builds like all the ramps and stuff like that. He does stuff for Woodward. He did a bunch of other stuff for a bunch of groups. Gene was an amazing skater, but just like a really intense one. And then the Sigafus brothers, Jay was a guy I kind of grew up kind of looking up to. A lot of the guys in the Lehigh Valley, if you asked like Danny Pencil or any of those guys, asked who the best one was in that area, and everybody unanimously will say Jay Sigafus.
Dang, sick.
Yeah, and
was he trainee or street or
both?
Damn,
he was one
double
of those,
threat.
Yeah, he grew up like skating vert and stuff, because like we had in the Lehigh Valley, like back in the early '80s, they had a lot of vert ramps. Like I don't know if you know Rob Mertz from Rob,
Syndrome, and but
Syndrome.
before that too,
He's from
punk rock music.
Exactly. Rob is from PA.
Sick. I didn't know that.
Yeah, his grandmother, he had a vert ramp at his grandmother's house in Nazareth, and my mom's from Nazareth, so it was just like, you know, I would hear all these stories about it, and then I'd see photos and stuff like that, and then I got to talk to Rob a couple of times, and he's like, yeah, you know, he goes, my board with the shark and everything on it with the PA. He's like, yeah, I'm from PA, and it's when I was working at a skate shop that guys that he grew up skating with knew, and they knew him, and they were like, yeah, we used to have all these ramps, and they'd show me all these pictures, and they'd show me pictures of like all the stuff that was happening in PA and in New Jersey. Like they had Cherry Hill in Jersey, they had Philadelphia Skate Park in Philadelphia. Like this was like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
So then when all those closed, people started building them in their backyards and whatnot. So and some of them were the jankiest looking things, but man, could they skate on those things? You know? And I think that's where they cut their teeth, and it was always
that'll make you fucking good. Like shitty ramps will make you good.
I'm telling you, and I think that's that whole thing that was coming up that we all grew up with. It's like, you know, a lot of DIY stuff. So everybody was DIY, and you know, we get our Thrasher once a month, or for me, I got Transworld once a month from those book order clubs. You know, when you're a kid, and I got that.
My friend had the hookup. His mom got him subscriptions.
Yeah.
I benefited.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom got me a subscription to Transworld, and I remember looking at that because, you know, we didn't have videos or anything. A lot of us didn't even have VHS when we were younger, so we're looking through them, and we'd go through them, and we'd see the sequences. And you'd see those sequences, and you're like, all right, how I'm going to try to learn everything in this book before the next one comes in. But a lot of times the sequences would be missing a piece. Yeah. And then you'd have to imagine what that piece would be. And then we're like, and then we would do it, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw this in the magazine. They're like, oh no, that's not that. Like if you're trying to learn sow flip, you know, and they
did the wrong trick.
They took it out. They took this part out, right? But they left this part in.
Yeah.
So we're like doing finger flips to like tails, and they're like, no, you got to come around. I was like, no, in the magazine, no, they're missing that one. And like, oh, and then. So it was cool because then it was like you had that free exchange of ideas, similar to what people are doing now online. But you were doing it in person, and there was only so many of us. Like once I was out there skating in the parking lots, and I started running into people. Like, you know, we all memorized each other's phone numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, you know, there was no internet or whatnot. And then other kids who lived like outside of, you know, the area, whether you had their phone number or if you didn't have long distance, like my parents didn't have long distance for the longest time. You wrote letters, you did pen pal stuff, you know what I mean? And we pen palled the people and stayed in touch with them that way.
It's crazy when skate, especially because I grew up in a sort of a smallish town in New Hampshire for a little while. I lived there, and that's where I started skating. And then I just met someone, he was super cool to me, and then we just became friends, and
that's how it worked.
I slept over at his house that night. You know?
Yeah.
And we're like friends.
And there was no waiting period within the yards. Like you'd walk out and you'd see somebody with Vans or Airwalks on, and you'd be like, "You a skater? I'm a skater too. Where you skate at?" You know? And
you have so much to talk about already.
Exactly. And then it was like to the point. Then the moms would start talking while we were there, and then we'd start doing tricks in the parking lot. You know, so when we were all kids. And next thing you know, you had a new buddy. And, you know, I always say, like, a lot of the guys that you meet through skateboarding are the friends that you make for life, whether they're super close friends or they're just good acquaintances and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but you always have something in common. You can always pick up from where you left off. And it's always relevant and it's always exciting, you know, because it doesn't, you know, like, hey, man, how are those pivot fakies coming? Or how's that kickflip coming? Or how's your knee? You know, that type of stuff. There's always something to talk about, and there's always something to improve upon and look forward to.
And you're both like you made a practice of moving your body and getting your heart going and like doing something physical and creative, and like
exactly
it just keeps everything flowing. You're not stuck in a rut. You feel like reborn every time. Skating helps. Yeah.
Well, you feel reborn every time when everything's working right.
Once you heal.
Or once you warm up for about an hour, you know, depending on how old you get.
I'm learning that. At 39, I'm taking laps before I do a single ollie, dude.
I'm telling you, I'm 43 now. I'll be 44 in April. And I've been skateboarding for this summer will be 34 years that I've been pushing. I didn't start really doing tricks until I was about 12, but I started pushing on the skateboard. And my first skateboard I had was a hand-me-down. Of course, as many people had the hand-me-downs. A friend of mine had a really nice like black board with like a big fishtail, and I don't even know if it was a brand name. It might have been a Veriflex board, like when Veriflex was like actually a company.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm skating this board, and of course that's the board that like was balanced and everything. He's like, you can skate this board, and he brings me out like this banana board. You know, it had like a taper tail like this. It didn't even have a kick tail on it.
Yeah.
It just had roller skate wheels, and it was a 70s board. And he's like, if you can learn how to skate this, I'll let you skate this board. So I learned how to push and turn on like one of those old 70s boards.
Oh, that's wild, because your whole foot, was it really small? Like your foot pretty much covered it?
Oh,
was
yeah.
it hard to get both your feet on those things?
Well, yeah, you had to kind of put your feet kind of like
mad
this,
close,
you know, like this,
yeah.
and then you kind of leaned in like that, and you ate a lot of shit, you know, just learning to turn, because some of them were really, because the trucks were so small, it was really whippy.
Yeah.
And then it was like, then once you got the rhythm, then it was all right. But and then as you know, I continued going, and my mother saw that it wasn't a phase. You know, then I was able to get my first skateboard, which she got for me, and it's funny. It's kind of funny. I look at it in retrospect, and it's a little embarrassing, but it was I got a Bart Simpson skateboard. That was like my first.
Don't have a cow, dude.
Yeah. It had like Bart Simpson, had like these flames on it, and it was this because, you know, I didn't, when I was coming up, we didn't have much money, so it was like, you know, she saw the board and it was within the price range that she could afford, and then she got it for me for, I think it was like my birthday or something like that. And
That's always that double edge with that cheap like Walmart board.
right.
It's like I have people come to me for skateboard lessons, and they come in on that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, but then I'm also like, well, it got him here.
It got him there.
And I can
Exactly.
teach him to push, even though it's harder to do and it's more annoying.
Right.
But
yeah, and then those now they have like plastic trucks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And mine, these actually had metal trucks, and they had wheels, but it had like a nose bone and a tail bone and rails and copers and like all that stuff. So I basically took all that stuff off and just tried to skate it raw, and I skated that thing until it like into the ground, basically, until I couldn't skate it anymore. And then I had an opportunity. My mom was like, well, if you want to continue doing this, you can earn your way to do it. So I did, and my first board that I bought was a Rolls Racer.
all right.
And on the bottom of it, it was, and I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, and I actually talked to him about it too when I saw him, Jeff Grosso. It was a Jeff Grosso graphic, the Alice in Wonderland one with the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah.
And in the smoke it said Grosso, and in there they just changed it to say Rolls Racer. And I didn't realize it until many years later, because I would skate with the older guys, and they're like, did you get a Grosso? And I'm like, I don't know, it's this. And they're like, oh, you got like a, you know. So I was like all hyped because the older guys were like all psyched I got a new board. And then I was bummed because like, oh man, that's a ripoff. And I'm like, what? I just spent all my allowance on this.
You were cool for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, more like probably 10 seconds, and then it was just like, you know. And
I've been that guy.
Yeah, so I just kept skating it, and
What was it? Rolls Royce?
it was called Rolls Racer.
Racer. I remember those, but I don't think they ever made like a popsicle. They just made like small boards, right?
They made small boards, and then they had the old school boards. So my board, I think I still have it. It's like this, and it has a minimum kick tail on it, but it was like shaped like a fishtail.
Okay.
Rounded nose, and it was maybe, I don't know, 9 or 10 inches wide. It was big. And so we had that, and then when I was wearing that out, my friends were like, yeah, we can't be seen with you with that. So they started giving me hand-me-downs. So I think my first pro board that I bought for my friend for like $10 was a used Frankie Hill Bulldog board.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, so I had that, and then my friend had some Gullwing trucks.
Ooh.
So he had Gullwing trucks, but they weren't Gullwing base plates because he broke the base plates.
Oh, yeah.
So they were like an Indie base plate and like a Thunder. It was something like some combination. Frankensteined it out, and then like they all got different types of wheels. So I think I had 297s and 295s and rotating them all the time just so I had something to skate.
You're your own pit crew.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I learned how to use I had my elephant wrench with me, and I was able to I learned a lot of how the mechanics of a skateboard because I was repairing that all the time.
Yeah, dude, keeping it going.
Yeah,
I used to break a lot more kingpins when I was younger. Maybe just because I was landing weirder.
Me too.
Or like
either that or the geometry was different back then or something.
Yeah, true.
But
right?
it's like, yeah, no, I used to break kingpins all the time. I cannot tell you the last time I broke a kingpin these days. But
The amount of smashed fingers from trying to get the
Oh.
kingpin out of the base plate.
you take, I put it in between two pieces of like wood.
You had to
and
make
just
something.
Bam, 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 and then you take like you're like, all right, I have a new kingpin, and you have to like aim it just right, so you knock that in, and then you had to try to figure out how to get that back out, and it was a whole mess, you know. So,
Kids are so soft these days. People at the shop set the board up for you. Like they do everything, dude.
yeah, they don't even know how to grip tape, and it was like I'll never forget. Like I went to a skate shop, and the first skate shop I was at was called Amateur Athlete. It's still there. It's been around since I think 81 or 82. It's
Wow.
still in business.
That's insane.
It is.
It's not strictly a skate shop though.
Yeah, pretty
It is?
much. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
they do a lot of apparel and they do a lot of shoes. Like their shoe wall is huge now.
The name just threw me off because like athlete, you think they wouldn't use that
Right.
as far as like associating with skateboarding.
You would think, but it was from like the early 80s and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I mean, there was also another skate shop back then called ALLiNEEDSKATE and Trophy, and you know, they did skateboards and they did trophies. You know, that's
Sick.
how they know. And so they did the trophies for all the schools and stuff there. But like, it was just a different skate shop experience. Because like, if you went to Ambler, there was this guy Norm who was there, and he was like this salty old dog, and I appreciated that because he was a little bit of a tough badass back then.
Yeah.
But you go in there and you'd be looking, and you're just looking, you're seeing all these boards, and you're seeing like, you know, all the Santa Cruz boards, or like all these crazy like colors and shapes, and you're just like in awe. And like, if you were there for 10 minutes and you didn't say whether or not, or you didn't like ask him any questions, he'd be like, he goes, "You gonna buy something, or you need to get the hell out of my store?" You know?
Fair enough.
And you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And then he would break you out of your shell a little bit. So I mean, it was like kind of trial by fire on that.
That's
but,
a good move. Yeah.
Yeah,
You need that guy.
But that was that guy, and they had some places like that. But Amateur Athlete was like a true skate shop. All the other places to get boards were like Schuylkill Valley Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
So they had like sporting goods there, and then they'd have boards, but they didn't have racks. They just let everything on the floor.
Yeah.
Same thing Amateur. Before Amateur really started building their stuff up, it was like basically a closet that you walked in, and there was maybe 5 shoes on the wall, and 2 of them were like Vans, Vision. There was a Vision shoe, an Airwalker 2 shoe, and then when Etnies came out, the Nodus was on there.
Sick.
And that was it. Those were your choices, and they all came in like 2 different colors, and that was it. And then you walk to the back, and there was like clothes all through the middle and on the sides. Like you couldn't jam pack any more stuff in there. You're like, well, where are the skateboards? And they're back there. And you go there, and there's like the jackets and the pants, and underneath the pants is where they have all the boards.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
different than today. There's whole board walls and
Yeah.
fucking everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they would do, and the one guy who worked at the shop, his name is Jeff. He was actually one of Rob Mertz's friends. The guy still skates. He does photos, and he skates this trench. Like you ever see like those wastewater trenches like on the side of the road?
Yeah.
There's a really famous and notorious one in Bethlehem, and people still skate it. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
to the point where like the concrete is like lifting up, and like piano keys all the way down.
What?
And they're still skating it, and they're putting curbs on top, and they're just doing it. They're just
That sounds like heaven.
it's one of the gnarliest places. It's so gnarly.
Yeah.
But yeah, he showed me how to fit a board, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I need to get a new skateboard. He's like, all right. He's like, so he set out a bunch of different shapes. Didn't show me the graphics, and he had me stand on each one and wiggle this way and that way. Now do this one, this one. So we went through it. It's like, which ones felt the best under your feet? I want you to get a good feel of your skateboard, because you have to. It's basically he was basically saying, without saying it, it's like you have to connect the mind and the body together to be able to work this thing. And I said, okay. So we did that. Then I picked a few, and then from there we rendered it down. So we had maybe like 4 or 5 boards that were left out of this big stack. And then he's like, okay. He's like, so all of these feel good underneath you? I said, yeah. And he flipped them over, and he's like, which graphic do you like?
Oh, sick.
Out of all of them. And I'm like, oh, there's so many, you know what I mean? And so that's how he taught me how to pick boards. He's like, the graphics will bring you in.
Yeah.
But he's like, there's boards that you will have. And I've done this too. There's boards that I saw, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm just going to get that. And then I wrote it, and I'm like, ooh, this feels weird. It's too much concave, or it's too little concave, or whatever it was. There's
The wheelbase is off.
The
Yeah.
wheelbase is off. And
I've been there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I know that you know Ronnie Gordon as well. And
Oh, yeah.
Ronnie would, he used to go to skate shop and measure all that stuff.
Of course he would.
Of course he would. Yeah, yeah. He's totally like
Perfect.
that. Still to this day, you know, he's like 45, 46. He has his own company now.
Tape measure.
And he takes the tape measure out and he measures the kick of where it comes up and the nose and tail. Like, oh, he's like right there. But as long as I got a general feel of it, I'm like, all right, I can do this. You know?
Yeah. You can adjust. Like, I remember I'd have certain boards that would be longer, and then like frontside flips would work better.
Right.
Shorter boards, and like you start to just do tricks that feel better at that
like
time.
more flippy tricks and stuff on something smaller, rotational tricks, and then longer ones was like when you wanted to do like gaps or you wanted to do
180s and
like,
stuff.
Yeah, and you wanted to accentuate the movement more.
Yeah.
So you get like that. Because a lot of kids, because I teach a lot of kids too at our skateboard academy, and you know, a lot of the kids pop up the board when they first start. They pop up, but they don't get that shift.
Yeah.
And when I was coming up, like, you know, one, you had to come up with your own ways of doing everything. You know what I mean? Like you saw somebody do something, like you could emulate that. But if they were working on that, you had to ask them permission if it was all right for you to try it along with them. And you couldn't do it the way they did it. You had to do it the way that your body did and what your expression was. So it was all about accentuation and like boning things out, you know what I mean, back when I was growing up. So everything either had to be like out here, like Quim Cardona style.
Oh, so good.
Or you'd have to like, you know, kind of nose bomb it like this, you know, as well. So
I loved when I learned that about an ollie, and I try to teach that too, is like, you can do an ollie and it can be a soggy ollie, you know?
Yes.
But to like have some emphasis and pop and start to bone it and push it down, it's like,
oh yeah,
cool when you see someone hit that, because you're like, oh, they have like a lot more control, you know?
Absolutely. And it just adds a little bit extra to it. I mean, to be honest with you, I remember years ago, what was his name? Oh, Nate Jones. I saw Nate Jones when he was an amateur. We were skating at Tampa Am the one year. And I just remember he went up for like a kickflip, and it took like a day and a half for him to get it around, you know, because he just popped and he just went straight up, and then he like shifted his weight and accentuated that movement and just flicked it and then caught it like this and then dipped it down and then came down. And
he had one of the wildest ones in ollies.
So crazy. So like, you know, we'd see stuff like that and we get inspired by it, but like everybody's body mechanics is a bit different. So it's like, all right, well, how can I make this work for me? So growing up as well, you know, going back to that first point that you were asking, is that, you know, I skated with a lot of older guys. A lot of us did, you know, and they were the ones who kind of shaped and kind of shepherded us within regards to direction. They weren't like, it wasn't so like regimented, but it was like, you know, if we went to a spot, we had to try whatever they were trying. Like, oh, we're jumping down this, you at least have to try it. You know what I mean? You don't have to do the tricks we're doing, but you at least have to try or make an attempt, you know? And so like growing up within regards to that and seeing those guys pushing themselves, it gave us a good idea of like kind of a blueprint of how to do this thing. Because when you see it, you know, you're just like blown away by it. I remember the first, I don't know if you remember your first video that you've seen or saw it on TV. The first time I ever saw the video was called the Bluegrass Aggression Session. And it was a
sick name.
Yeah, it was sick. And it was I think it was like in the late 80s. And it was a vert contest. And it was on like, we had like local cable. So it was like very basic cable. And
it's crazy. Sorry to slow you down,
no worries,
but it's crazy to me that they used to have skateboarding on TV. Like that wasn't a thing when I like got into it. It was VHS and then the internet, you know. But TV was a thing before, you know.
It had TV, and it was only once in a while. So like you would have like, so when you saw it, it was like, I can't believe we're actually watching this. And we were always out playing outside. But when somebody said, oh, you know, somebody be inside, yo, you got to see this. I got skateboarding on. We're like, what? You know, and we went in and we saw the Bluegrass Aggression Session, and it had Tony Hawk, and he had like a pink helmet on, Christian Asoy, I think, was it Jeff Phillips, and all those guys were there, and we're just watching them, and I'm just like, I have no idea what they're doing or how they're doing it, but I want to do that. And then we went and we were at my friend's house, and he had a little kicker ramp, so we went out there and tried to emulate that. Like, they were on a big vert ramp, and we were on like a little kicker ramp out in the
trying hand plants or something.
Yeah, like doing bonelesses or like method grabs or like, you know, trying to do like the was it the Christ air, like popping in the hand, and then trying to figure out how to throw it underneath without like killing yourself, you know, and you know, stuff like that, you know. And then
my friend Kevin's can do that. He can like Canadian fly out when you launch out of a quarter pipe.
Yeah.
Like Christ there and throw it under.
Some people just got it like that. Other people, it takes a little while. So it was, But we put it in. But yeah, they used to have a thing like on, I think it was Nickelodeon and whatnot. It was called Skate TV. So Skate Master Tate. It was only on for like a couple years or whatnot. But that's how we kind of got a taste of like what it was in California. We always thought it was just a California thing, but we're like, oh man, how cool would that be to do that? And it sparked imagination within regards to us, and it pushed us. It gave us that little extra push other than the magazines. And then of course, when we were able to get together and skate, but a lot of times you're skating on your own and you had to have that push. So when you saw that and you saw like, you'd see a video of like Guy Mariano, and he was, even though he's a little older than I am, you know, he's smaller, so he looked younger. So I'm like, oh man, this guy's way good. I'm behind the times, even though, you know, he was a little older, but like that was the perception. And I'm like, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. And it just puts it in your head, just like when kids are playing video games these days, you know, you look at guys like Andy Anderson and all that, and they look like a video game when they're skating.
It's ridiculous.
You know, and it's like, because they grew up with those video games, and they think, oh, well, this must be based on reality, and therefore it's possible. And once you get over that block, and that's what, as you know, with skateboarding, just getting over that block and seeing what's possible, or seeing what you could get away with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there was times I was like, I'm going to try this trick. I have no idea if I'm going to do it or if I'm ever going to land it, but I'm going to see how close I can do it to get away with it, so that, you know, before I like either land or slam. Either I'm going to land or slam. Either way, it's going to be glorious. But like either way, but I'm focusing on landing. I'm not thinking about slamming. I'm thinking about landing.
I use that phrase a lot when I skate with people. I'm like, when you can tell that they're at the point where they just need to land it, and you just go land or slam. And it's kind of like a dare, and it's like, okay, but if I fully commit, I'm going to either land or slam.
And just saying those words just put something in your head that's like, all right, I'm overthinking it right now, and all I have to worry about is putting my feet down. It's already going in the motion. I just gotta do it, and just gotta believe in myself. You know what I mean? And just that journey to go through that is so telling of an individual, and what's going on with that person at that time. You know what I mean?
Fully, dude.
You know, so it's interesting, because a lot of people use skateboarding for different reasons. You know, and you know, for me, on a personal mode, like I use that to kind of get over some of the stuff that I was going through when I was a kid, you know. And,
man, I can relate to that.
Yeah, no, I know you can, you know. And I've heard your story in regards to it, and it's like, you know, I was, you know, I grew up in like a rural area, but like, you know, my stepmother was the one who pretty much raised me. You know, my dad was a workaholic, and we would connect through work and whatnot, and he'd see me skating, and he thought, oh, that was all right. You know, my dad's from England, so it was like, oh, that's all right. You know, keep going, but make sure you can get up and work the next day, you know, because we, on the weekends, we'd go and work with him in the morning, pulling weeds or whatnot, or working on the engines of his machines. And then, but my mom was the one who pretty much raised me and my brother. And, you know, I had, my birth mother passed when I was young. So it was like, I had this chip on my shoulder. I had this energy that just couldn't be dissipated through just regular studies in sports. Like I'd be in like a sport or two sports sometimes in a thing, and I was just like angry, you know what I mean? And just had all this anger and all this stuff. And you know, even though my mom, she's my stepmom technically, but she's my mom, she saw that in me, even though she didn't understand it, and she didn't necessarily at the time, she didn't like the imagery of skateboarding, or like the what do you call it, the perception, this perception, the stigma of it, because back then it was a lot more renegade than it is today. She was like, I don't really fully back this, but I know he needs this. And just allowing me to use it, and she used that as a tool to kind of like, when I was going off the rails on behavior or getting the fights or what kids do, she used that as a guide to be like, yo, if you want to go skateboarding, because I mean, I did sports, and I was really good at sports when I was coming up. I did varsity track and wrestling and all that stuff. So my teachers would give me, my teachers or my coaches would give me kind of like leeway in regards to getting stuff done or this, that, the. But Mama was old school, so Mama was like, no, you need to get your work done, and until you get your work done, they may have you run in the race, they may have you wrestle in the meet, but when you come home, you're not skateboarding. You're getting all this stuff done. You're doing more chores. You're doing this. You're doing that. And it was such a, and I loved skating so much. Like, that's the only thing that made me say, that made sense and kept me sane, you know, when I was growing up as a teenager. because I'm sure you could relate to this as well, and probably some of the other people who are watching this as well.
Definitely.
Is that, you know, you have stuff that's at home, and then not only that, you also have the pressures at school, you know. And some of the pressures I had at school is like I was in that in between thing. I didn't really fit into any of the cliques. You know? Even to skateboarder clique, I didn't fit into. You know, the older guys who skated, I got along with them just fine. But the ones who were in my age group, it was hit or miss. You know, because I also was a good athlete too. So like, you know, they were like, oh, you're like, you know, a jock, this, that, the third, and I wasn't by any means. You know, jock is more of a mentality. You know, but I was hanging out with the art kids because I really liked art, and I hung out at the shop because I liked building things, and then I hung out with these guys over here because they were into science and all that stuff, and I was into science, and then I was hanging out with these people who were art, and so it was all this conglomeration of all different things, and some people, like when they were in school, they were just like, we are just this, and we only do this, and
I dealt with that a bit.
Yeah, I'm
with
sure.
Kids, and just like I never wanted to like let people down, and I wanted to work hard for things, and you get made fun for being a try hard and shit.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, and that isn't the weirdest
Not
thing.
cool enough.
Isn't that the weirdest thing? It's like you were actually getting put down for trying to achieve something, or like once, and I'm sure you've even found this out too. Like when you were getting better at skating and you were starting to get noticed and whatnot, and then all the guys that you skated with, right, who may have not like went to contests, and they, oh, contest, you know, oh, why are you doing that, you know?
Oh yeah, I've seen
that. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And those are lame. That's lame. And it's a lot of it is because, you know, you look at it retrospectively, and you're like, oh, they were just either they didn't do well in them, or they were afraid to put themselves out in front of people to be judged. You know what I mean? And I wasn't, and I would go into doing contests and stuff as a way to learn. That's because I did sports all my life, and I knew that when you first do something like you do sports and stuff, you're going to lose a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just part of it, you know. And the only way you get better is by putting yourself out there and skate. You know, whether it's running or wrestling, you run or you wrestle the best, and then you have to do the same thing with skating. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to see if this is something that you could do, you show up to a contest or you show up to a demo, and you try to get in there, and you just, you know, you say what's up, and you're polite to everybody, kind of like what they would say in sports, being a good sport, and you make new friends, and you try your best, and then you see where you're at, and you be honest with yourself, and then from there you can say, oh, I can do this and that, instead of getting down on yourself. It's more, I always looked at it as, all right, I have an opportunity. I did all right on here. I did my stuff, but I saw all this other stuff, and now I want to learn this, and that pushed you to the next one, you know. And it's just progression, just like in life, you know. And there's a lot of parallels, as you know, with skateboarding and life, you know. And how they all everything is intermixed. It's not so black and white like as some of those kids thought it was in school,
that's well said.
It's not so black and white. And I remember, you know, you feel kind of abandoned by people that you thought you were your boys, you know what I mean? Friends, and then
I dealt with that a lot because I was very ambitious and focused on skating, so I would put off all the shit they wanted to do and be like, I'd be the driving force. Like, no, fuck all that. Let's just go skate, you know?
Well, no, it's funny.
Other people wanted to live their lives.
Oh, absolutely. And they were fine being quote unquote normal, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, I don't know about you, but I never felt normal. You know, I never knew how to relate to, you know, oh, we're going to go to the mall, and we're going to you know, go bowling, and we're going to do this and that. And don't get me wrong, I've done all that stuff too, but like none of them had passion. You know what I mean? And that was something that was missing. And I couldn't relate to somebody who didn't have passion or had goals or aspirations and stuff like that. And it didn't matter what they did, but it was like, if you just kind of do like the baseline, you're never going to understand the highs and the lows of things. You know, you don't really get the full dynamic taste of life. You know, that it comes with those highs and lows. And it's funny, it's, you know, just to go back with what you're saying about how you were driving yourself to do all these things. I don't know if you remember this, but I was emceeing a lot of the events back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So like, I remember, I think the first time I met you or I saw you, I don't know, I think you were riding for Fiber at the time. It was over at Skater Island.
Hell yeah.
Skater Island Am. And, you know, we ran the event and stuff like that, and I was emceeing all throughout. And I remember it was seeing guys, and it's funny because I look back on all those videos, and I was talking to T. Eric Monroe, the guy who started all that, and we were going through some archive footage, and like I found photos. I found a photo of you, and I found photos of like Ronnie Gordon and Jeremy Rogers,
So
and
sick.
PJ Ladd, and even Akil
I was
Brathwaite,
gonna
and
say.
all those guys. Jim Day, you know,
Yeah,
like
hell
whatever happened to Jim Day, like that dude was rad. He always popped really high ollies. Willie Akers was there, and then I remember there was the judges there. I don't know if you remember the judges that were there the one year. The one year it was Rodney Mullen. It was Rodney Mullen, Jose Rojo, Mark Johnson was there, and then Vanny Kobokian,
Yeah.
Boston guy. He was there as one. He was riding for Santa Cruz. I think it was before he started doing that. That's
Vehicle?
Before he did vehicle with Ganjemi.
Yep.
And then I think Jim Cagney was there as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, and they were all like the celebrity judges and stuff.
That's a heavy lineup.
It was crazy, and you got to see them skate and stuff like that, and it was kind of cool. But like I'll never forget, there was and I could tell that you were really driving to it because you wrote for, I think you wrote for Fibro back then, right? And I think that was when Willie Akers just was getting noticed because he was riding for Capital and Nicotine when I was riding for Capital and Nicotine.
Yeah.
And I wrote for Bodega, and I wrote for a bunch
Sick.
of different companies. And he just made the switch from Capital to go to Fibro. And, you know, Willie's doing like his nose bones over the hips and that. And
So good.
Willie's a funny character. I remember when he was a short little fat kid who could only do backside transfers.
Oh, sick.
And then, but he was good. He was just like this short little like stocky kid. And when I say that to people, like, he was stocky at one time, I was like, oh yeah, man, he was solid.
Nick Dompierre was too.
Yeah.
We used to make fun of him for being short and like never gonna grow up, and he was wide. And look at him now.
And
Yeah.
he's like freaking Mr. Bodybuilder. I just saw a video of him the other day, and I'm just like, dude, that's just ridiculous. Like,
it's laughable.
Well, it's to the point where I'm like, man, I am so out of shape when I look at him. Like, even if I was in decent shape too, I'd look at him. I'm like, oh, I got work
He's
to
like
do.
taking actors and like out. Like he's
Oh, yeah.
outshining like people you think are tough, or not tough, but built crazy.
Yes.
He's like intense about it.
Oh, I know.
Just like his nose blunts. You know?
Oh, I know, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. I remember when he was coming up. But back to when I was seeing you, what really like put you in my mind back then was, I remember it was Best Trick, and you remember how like the Skater Island there was like they were like 8 to 10 feet wide across the top.
Yeah,
right?
they're big pyramids.
Big,
Man.
and then they had that big ice chest box.
We
that
call
was
it refrigerator
the
box.
refrigerator box,
Yeah.
which Zared somehow like switch kick flipped over that thing, and I'm like, how the hell did he do that? And like he was 50-50 in it. Like Zared was a beast back then, you know, and he still is. But like I just remember seeing him, and
That switch flip still is stuck in my mind.
dude, it's so
Doesn't
good.
make sense.
And I remember going there. It was like one of my first times I was ever up in like Rhode Island. My friend Terry Sinnitz from Rhode Island, he's a freestyle guy, and I used to skate
Yeah.
with him up there. But we never went to Skater Island. And then when I was up there, he was like, "Oh, I can skate bowl too." And we skated the bowl with like Sid and all those guys. And that's a whole other story. Sid's a character. I love
Legend.
Sid, yeah. But I remember seeing you guys, and Rodney Mullen sitting there like this, like judging the video, judging everything. He's just looking like this, and he just looks like he's like, what the hell did I get myself into? I have no idea. He thought everybody was good, you know, like that's how Rodney is.
Yeah.
And Burton Smith, I don't remember Burton.
Tray flip tail grabs.
Tray flip tail grab, and he looked at Mullen when he did it.
Oh, dude.
And he's looking at him like this, and just boom, and we're all just like, oh my God. And then you come up, and you tried it a few times, and you finally got a good one. There's a couple ones I thought you were going to die on it, but you got a good one. You did a tray flip to like lip slide or board slide down it. And I remember the one, you caught it like this, and we're like, oh my God. You like kind of jumped and dove off of it. And then you finally got one, and you landed, and we're just like, oh my God. Because you weren't catching it like up top here. You were like down further on the rail, and we're like, oh, he's gonna nut it on the side. Like, oh my God, like we want to see it, and at the same time, oh, he's gonna die doing it, you know. And I remember seeing you guys down there, and I was just like, wow, who's this Shetler kid, you know? And then we were just like, and then I would see you throughout, and you went from Fibro to Birdhouse.
Yep.
And then did you
Zoo York.
Zoo York. You rode for Zoo as well.
And then World.
And then World.
What's crazy is I was riding for Fibro, and then I introduced like Brandon, because Brandon was from Wareham where I was living, Little Westgate, and so then he got on Fibro, And then my friend Seamus, who was the filmer.
Oh, I know Seamus.
Yeah, Seamus became the team manager. He used
Yeah.
to just film us. And then Susky was on Fibro. And
Yeah.
then from there, Seamus was like the dark man behind the scenes. And he worked a deal to go from Fibro to Birdhouse.
Right.
And Donnie too, because Donnie ended up going to Birdhouse.
Right.
And then asked me to ride for them. And then we all ended up on Birdhouse. Me, Susky, Westgate, and Seamus. And Seamus was team manager and
Right.
filming. And then the same thing. We stayed there for 2 years, which was amazing. And then Seamus kind of worked out a deal to go back home to the East Coast. He's like, New York. And I was like,
Yep.
being like from the East Coast, it's like a little kid. Like,
Well, of course. And then like there's that whole thing with that whole aura of that, you know, like I remember when the East Coast was starting to be built up, you know what I mean? And we had guys like we had Capital, we had Nicotine, we had Zoo York, we had Toxic was back a little bit before then. So there was Team Toxic, and Walker was even before that.
yo. You should take us through like your sponsorships and
Oh yeah,
things as well.
I could do that.
please.
But yeah, so I mean, there was all this East Coast, like Big East and like all those guys, and then guys like Vinny Ponte were getting on like Treefort and stuff. So everybody was like East Coast pride all the time. And
Danny Supa too, right? On
Danny
Tree
Supa,
Fort?
yeah, he
Yep.
was on there, and then yeah, you'd see these guys going up, and you're like proud to be East Coast, and then like everybody was getting paid to be on the East Coast. You see the guys like Ricky and like Serge Janowski,
So
and Matt
sick.
Reeson,
Yes.
and it was like it was all happening, and the bottom kind of fell out on that, you know, for various reasons, as we know. But man, it was a cool time. And then Fibro, I remember when I actually still have the VHS promo from Fibro that he used to send out to all the shops. The shop I was working for at the time, called Boredom, up in Nazareth, we were the first shop in Pennsylvania, I think, to bring in Fibro.
Boredom.
Boredom, it was
Sick
called.
name.
Yeah. And it was like when I went in there, it sold like used CDs, and it was kind of like a little bit of a head shop with skateboards, and then in the back was a screen printer, you know.
Oh, rad.
So, and the screen printer was friends with Rob Mertz from back in the day, or he was like one of the GROMs when Rob was coming up, and he used to skate over there with those guys. And then he ended up getting like an NHRA contract, and it became like this big screen printer for like NASCAR and all that. So then he sold that business to the sporting goods store next door, and I kind of worked there for a little while until it. But yeah,
At the sporting store?
at the sporting goods store, yeah. It was
What's the difference?
yeah. It was literally across the street, and so they had me doing like snowboard and skateboard buying and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
made it legit, you know. And then, but we still had amateur, and that was before Home Base came in. And then later on, those guys from Home Base came out, like Andy Poe and all those
Yeah,
guys.
Andy.
And all the guys and a lot of the guys that I remember when Andy was coming up, when he was like a GROM, and then some of the guys who worked for him and stuff. I used to skate with all those guys back in the day. We'd see each other, and same thing. It started all out in the parking lots. Is basically what it came into.
I went through Andy's shop and Home Base when I
Yeah.
rode for World Industries.
Yep.
I turned pro for World, so it was Fibro, Birdhouse, New York, and then after the State of Mind video,
Yeah.
World Industries hit me up, and they're like, we want to give you a pro board and a pro shoe, and like,
Sick.
yeah, exactly. I was like, what? And like, they were trying to rebuild the team, and Andrew Cannon was involved.
Oh, I know
and
Andrew.
like,
Yep.
yeah, so I was like, this is such a cool opportunity. And RP Best was a brand manager, and Charlie Thomas, just
yeah.
rippers, yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
All
good
in
guys.
charge of World. I'm like, this is so, you got your hands on this crazy epic brand,
Uh-huh.
and like, they want me to ride for them, so
I know.
that's how that happened. And then we went through Home Base because RP was homies with them, and
Yeah.
sick. That place is awesome, and that park right there is unbelievable too.
Yeah, they're starting to build more of it and stuff. And it's funny because I remember like, it's got to be close to 30 years ago is when they started fundraising with it. It was like the Bike Coalition started that whole thing. And they had like portable ramps like in like a roller skating rink, you know, or an ice skating rink, you know, was
Yep. Shred for mics and stuff they used to do.
well,
and
that was T. Eric Monroe who
Different
did Shred
people.
for Mike. That was
Yeah.
different. And
But the ice rinks, that's
the
what, yeah.
old school ice rinks that you would put in like the ramps, and then you'd put them up, and then you'd take them down and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, you know, that kind of became the precursor of what I do today with the Skateboard Academy and stuff. But we'll get to that. But you were mentioning when you were talking about sponsors and stuff like that,
Yeah,
it reminded me, and also talking about T. Eric Monroe. So I'll tell you a little bit about it, I guess. So like, you know, I was up there skating, and it was one of those things. It's like I started skating in contest, you know, and I was like, I want to know, like, I felt like I was learning skills, but I knew there was a lot more that I needed to learn. And in the Lehigh Valley, like, I skated with all the best guys, like Danny Pencil and Andy Mack and Steve and all those guys. And I'd see in Ray, And I would see these guys, and once in a while they'd have like a little pop-up skate park, like at this thing called Mayfair. It was like a like a community thing where they had arts and they do all that stuff, some Pennsylvania Dutch stuff and whatever. And they had a whole bunch of different things there. And they had a little skate thing, and they do a contest there, and we would do a little contest.
I love
there.
those things.
Yeah, it was what it was. It was like maybe 2 banks like here, like a little fun box area, like a really janky quarter pipe, and like some flat rails or whatnot. And that's it. You know what I mean? But that's it was what we had, and it was fun, and it got everybody together from like all the neighborhoods, And I remember skating in it, and so we skated those, and we had like a contest at Shimerville. And the first contest I ever skated with at Shimerville, I was really nervous. I had a Jeremy Klein Mortal Kombat board. That's how long ago this was. Yeah, it was like 7 3/8 or 7 1/2. It was really small. First board I ever broke, actually. And I skated, and I did all right. Like I could, there were certain tricks that I could do. And then I was really influenced by like Simon Woodstock. So I slipped the shoes on my heels, and I did the 360 flip, and I kicked the shoes off, and I landed it,
What?
and they were just like, what? And it was like probably the best trick. Everything else was like rock and rolls, 50-50s, board slides, that shit. But that was like my big trick. And people were like hyped on it. And I think, I don't even know how well I did in it, but I was just hyped because it was that energy. And like even the homies and stuff, like people would come up and be like, yo, dude, that was sick. Or even if they saw you trying and you ate shit, they're like, yo, man, that was freaking tough as nails. And it was like this brotherhood type of thing. And I kind of, because I competed a lot like in track and field and stuff. Like I did states like almost every year. And
You must be pretty good then.
I was pretty good. Not,
Awesome.
I don't run anymore, but like it's but I was pretty good at like physical sports. So I got that same thing, but from something that I really loved. I did it because it was something to do, with the sports, but and to get some of my energy out so I wouldn't drive my mother nuts.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my passion, and my passion was always skateboarding. So my mom was like, well, you need to start skateboarding like in these contests. Because my mom, she was a big athlete as well. My mom was like a All-American basketball player and like did javelin and shot discus and stuff like that, state champ and all that stuff. So it was like, if you're going to do this, you better like see what you can do with it and see how far you can take it, because if you don't, you're going to like regret it. So put yourself out there. I know it's nervous wracking because you'd see all these guys that you look up to and you're like, I'm going to look like a total ass.
Yeah.
And then you'd have one person that come up and say, yo, dude, man, just skate for fun, or say something like that. And you're like, yeah. And then after the first run where you like go behind the ramp and throw up afterwards, because of nerves. And then the second run was fine, and you just felt like this brotherhood. And then when you go to the next spot, you'd see some of the same guys and whatnot, and it's like you became like bros on the road. You know what I mean? So for my first sponsors and stuff, my first sponsor was actually a Boredom Skate Shop. I skated for the skate shop, and they saw what I did, and they would see me at different places, and they'd see me helping out kids like who were just learning, because I always was like that. Like I would do something, a kid like a newbie would come up, how do you do that? And I'd give them something to work on, and then I'd go and skate, but they would just work on that thing the whole day. So they liked that. So they were like, yeah, do you want to work at the shop? So I did. And then, we're watching videos, and I was talking, we came up with all these creative things to like get people into skating and stuff. So we did contest over at
Through the shop.
Yeah. So we do like contest at like West End Skate Park, which is kind of famous and infamous at the same time. It was a small one. It was where Kerry Getz grew up skating as well. Well, you think, in that park it was a small park at first, and then they grew into a bigger one. And my first contest I ever ran was in '97, and it was called Mayhem in May. And
Sick name.
No, I'm sorry, that was later on. It was called the East Coast Am Jam. That's right. The first one.
That's
was
a
East
sick
Coast
name
Am Jam.
too.
Yeah, but it's funny because it said ECAJ. East
sick.
Coast AJ.
That's right.
So we did that one, and we did it there.
It was calling your name, bro.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's awesome.
And it was non-intentional, but it was like ECH. I'm like, oh man, this is lame. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, it was already too late. It was already advertised. So
No, that's sick to me. I think it's sick.
Oh well, I'm glad.
I'm not AJ, but I still think it's sick.
But so like we ran that one, and I got to meet a whole bunch of other people. So I met like Mike Manitas, who runs Atlas out in out towards like San Francisco. He's south of San Francisco.
He's so good.
Yeah, Mike was killer. He rode for New Deal and a bunch of companies.
I've watched a bunch of his footage.
Yeah, he's the nicest dude ever. He smiles 27 hours out of the day. He's great.
Yeah.
So he was great. So he was there. Ronnie I met, I think, later on, and I have a funny story with meeting him.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody has an interesting story with Ronnie Gordon. But him and then this guy J.R. Cromwell was there. He would do like nollie heel flip tails and stuff.
So good.
Ben Ritaco, who was doing like the McTaco flip, which was like a front side 540 rodeo. He would do office stuff. And
Gnarly.
Andy Batista.
So good.
And all those guys. So I got to meet all these guys. DeVille, I don't think he skated. He didn't skate in the contest, but we would see him at West End. And that was when he was on Five Borough. Oh, really? And now he's the TM of POW, which is the craziest thing.
And he's so nice at mini ramp too.
Yeah, dude, he just had that. He had that back foot, man. He knew exactly where that foot needed to go and whatnot. So like I started doing contests and just getting people together. And then when we moved to the bigger one, the bigger West End, which was like 30,000 square foot, it was an old supermarket, and they had like rollers and like whoop-de-woos up the wall and stuff. And we were like the only game in town really, because nobody was really running contests. And I was like, well, I want a skating contest, but there's no more contests. So let me put one on. So we did Mayhem in May, and we did Meltdown, which was in February. And we did a few other ones with West End Skate Park. And that's Kerry, Bam, and Maldonado were all of our judges, because they were all on Toy Machine at the time. And
that was such a sick time.
Dude, it was, they were like the beasts of the East. Like everybody was just like, yo, these guys are like the up and comers. And everybody was like rooting for them too. They're like, yo, man. Like, and
that's rad.
And they would show up and they'd give back, you know what I mean? And that was always, that always stuck out to me. You know what I mean? Like, they're all busy with their lives and doing different things these days. You know, Kerry's got his whole family, and then Bam's got his whole Jackass thing and other things that are going on in his life that he's working through. And then you have Maldonado, which I see once in a while, and that dude still rips, by the way. Like all of them still can rip. And
legends, all three legends.
And we would see them, and they'd sit right there on the top of the quarter pipe and do that. And then Mark Brandstetter was our MC.
Sick.
You know, so
I know Mark.
Yeah, you know Mark. And for those who don't know who Mark was a TM over at Bootleg, and then he was also a TM at Action and a bunch of other stuff. But he's from Pittsburgh, you know, he's a PA guy. And he would show up and he'd MC, and we'd have the best of the best people coming from like Maine all the way up from Florida. Like, was it Mike Kent or Mike Flint? They would come from like Florida.
That's sick.
And like the Confessor and all those guys, they would all come up, and we'd all skate, and we'd skate like all day. And then we do a punk show at night. So we do a punk show with like the guys from Revelation Records. If they were on tour, they would stop by, and, you know, and it was crazy. We'd just be out there in the middle of the Poconos doing these skate contests. But so I ran into T. Eric Monroe, because he heard that I was doing contests, and he was doing contests. That's where he did Shred for Mike and whatnot, which was it was Shred for Life originally.
That's what it was.
Shred for Life, and then it became Shred for Mike because of what happened to Mike Cardona, right? Yeah. Rest in peace to him as well. But so Eric was doing events similar at the same time as I was, but he was going for like the bigger promotion stuff. I was doing like local stuff that just happened to grow bigger, and he was going for the gusto right off the bat. And so I saw the Beast of the East in United Skateboard Association. I was like, oh, maybe this is my way of doing it. So I entered it in 2000. I skated Tampa Am 99, and I wanted to see where I was at. And I think I placed in the top 60 my first year.
There you go.
Yeah, I did all right. I actually met up with, and I made some friends there. I made friends with Rodney Torres and Gio Moya.
Oh, sick.
They're the first guys I ran into there, and I'm like there, and I'm like, oh man, who am I? And I was riding for Boredom Skate Shop, and I was getting flow from Good Times and Adrenaline.
What?
So
both those are sick.
Yeah, well, they were all under the same distribution.
Wasn't Good Times was a board company too?
Yeah,
and Adrenaline.
Yeah, and then they were distributed for a while under. You ever see that Jester that has a skull?
Yeah.
Graphics.
Yep.
They were distributed by those guys for a while, and then they broke off and they did their own thing.
I remember that.
So it was like, you know, Joe Pino and all those guys were there. Jai Bonneroff and all those guys. Chris Sen was riding for those guys.
Yes.
And it was like, I was getting like shop flow, and Gary Collins was on flow and all that stuff. So
dude,
like all
Gary
these guys
too.
Yeah. So all these guys were coming up. So we met down at Tampa, and I want to see it. So I had my 7.75, and I had like an 8 1/4, or what? No, 8 1/8. 8 1/8 I had there. So we took them down there, and I wanted to see how I would do. and this is when the Klizza was on the mic.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and it was like I like the way he MCs. Like he's a character, but like I was listening to everybody going ahead of me, and he was ripping them like something fierce. Like, you know, this kid was wearing like one of those big ghetto gowns right now, and he's like, "Yo, you took your mother's moo-moo. Like, why your mother needs that moo-moo?" And while he's skating, right? And I'm just like, "Oh my God!" And here I am, some kid like from the Poconos, like, why am I even here? You know what I mean? But it's like I needed to test myself, you know, and Gio and Rodney were really like supportive and stuff like that. Like, yo, we're Northeast Coast, man. Like we first arrived together, and we were like the only ones there from the Northeast at first. And we're like, dude, we may have bit off more we can chew, and then we were fine. And then of course the Five Borough guys come in, and you know I meet Nardelli and Tato and all those guys, and it was like, oh, East Coast fam, like it's going on. That's when Mike Peterson wrote for him.
Oh, hell yeah.
So that's when he won it that year too.
Five Borough swarms, dude.
Oh yeah. And then you just hear Nardelli, you go, Five Borough, yeah. He just like that scream, and you're just like, oh man.
Yeah.
And so we had fun with all those guys, but it was like I skated it and I did all right. But then the next year I wanted to go back, you know. So I went back there the next year, and at that time, fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, that's when they switched it up. It's when Tampa started becoming a little bit more of a business, you know, more corporate. And nothing against Brian Schaefer or any of those guys, you know what I mean? I think those guys are great. They do their thing. But
politics ruins
it
all
was
things,
it wasn't the
dude.
same, because we went down there, and I went down there, and Rodney went down there again, and we were all told, oh yeah, you guys, you're in it, you know, you're good. People sent their money in, and we get down there, and they're like, they bumped like 30 of us.
Yeah, it sucks.
And I hate to put out the spot. It's 20 something years ago.
They'll be fine there.
It's fine. Yeah. It's 20 years ago. But it was because they I think they had to change because of where they were going.
Yeah.
Within regards to, it was getting too big, because everybody and their mother would show up to that contest, and if they let everybody enter it, I get it. They'd be there for like 4 days, you know, at least. They'd skate a whole week, and you still wouldn't go through everybody. So they had to do that, but unfortunately, you know, that first year was rough. So what Brian realized there was a misunderstanding, I guess, within regards to who was signing it in and, you know, sending the money back after we already got down there. We already bought our tickets.
Fuck.
Yeah, this is all before, you know, before how easy it is now to change your stuff. You couldn't do it back then. So we all show up, and we're like, fuck, like, what are we going to do? So Brian was like, look, you guys can skate the whole weekend. It's fine. And I'll let you guys skate you know, we'll put you guys on the list, so in case people get hurt. So some of us got in, but other ones didn't. So he let the rest of us skate in the best trick. So, which was kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, because as you know, in Tampa, it's 75 people here, 75 people here. And it was over the pyramid that had a rail that went like this.
Yeah.
And it was a mosh pit on wheels for 15 minutes.
Well said.
And I was just like, well, I'm in it now. You know what I mean? And
you didn't know you were going down for a fight.
Dude, it totally was a fight. And it's funny. I think there's a clip of me. I'm wearing like a beanie, and I have a button-down shirt, and you see me zipping through like in one of the 411 videos. I was like, my claim to fame in 411, you see me flying by.
That's awesome.
But I'll never forget, like, I came up, and I finally landed a trick. I did an ollie big spin heel flip over the pyramid.
What?
And I landed, and as soon as I landed, I bashed into Galilei Mamalu.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, and I'm like,
man.
dude, you all right? And he's like, dude, I'm all right. He's like, you all right? Yeah. As soon as we saw that, we see Chris Cole rolling in on the big kahuna, and we both push off of each other, and Chris comes right in between us. Benihana finger flip to flat, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Fuck. You know what I mean? I was just like, and we didn't know who Chris was. We just knew he was this very tall, like, he skates very straight. And I was like, this guy skates with the straightest back I've ever seen.
He
in my
almost
life.
like a quarterback.
Yeah, seriously. And he's like, just the way he's built. And, but like,
good for Benihana's.
Yeah, perfect.
Apparently.
And this right here would be all straight, and his legs would go every which way. And it was kind of strange how his legs would go, but he'd land everything. And we're just like, this guy, like, we were already calling out. We're like, dude, this guy could be pro now. Like, that was back in like 2000. We were saying that. Because he was just so above, he was just so beyond everybody else.
He had so much control too.
So much. Yeah, he was riding for Alliance at that time. So like guys like Wade Beaver and Jake Lewis and this guy Brandon and all those guys, they all skated in the same team. And I think Skinny was on that team too, Lejansky.
Yeah, Phil.
So Phil was at, and you know Skinny when you see him. You know what I mean? He's just He has that. He's back skating again. I heard he's ripping right now.
Hopefully he's blunt kickflipping something.
Oh yeah, you know he is. Like, he's had that on lock since I've known him.
He's done some of the gnarliest ones.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
No doubt, no doubt. But at that contest, there was also Pontus Alv was at that contest. Who else was at that contest? I don't know if it was 99 or 2000. I think it was 2000. Alex Chalmers was at that contest too, and he was doing like back nose blunts on the bank to wall and stuff.
Let's go get cokes.
Yeah, dude. So good. But like we got to skate with all these guys, and that was the year that Eric Ellington did the big spin front board down the rail, and like, nobody saw that before, and we're just like, all right, back to the drawing board. We got to get that. So that was in 99, and then 2000 we wanted to come back and see where we're at, but unfortunately we weren't able to do it. So I was like, man, I was kind of bummed out about it. I was really bummed, and like
I would be too.
And I was just like, you're all inflated. You're like, dude, I'm gonna go in it, and then it just got deflated, And so we went and skated the Bro Bowl and hung out with everybody, and had some crazy experiences down in Ybor City and on that whole strip down. It's like Vikings on a rampage during Tampa.
It's intense, bro.
I think Ritako got a on the Powell credit card. He got the Mustang convertible, and we were doing donuts like everywhere we could on that, and went to a few places.
Do you remember Dustin Charlton?
Oh, Dustin Charlton, yeah, for sure.
Remember he got hit with a toilet?
Yeah,
I heard Tampa, about that. Like got thrown off a second story, and like
I heard about that. I heard about that. That was in the hotel we were staying at. Freaking Bam jumped off of like the top and into the pool. Yeah, and then people were swinging Sammy Bautista, and they were going to try to throw him over that way. Those Cyrus guys were next to me, and they opened up the door, and Alyssa Steamer comes out, and she's like, "What's up, dudes?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Alyssa?" Da-da. And just these pillows of smoke just kept coming out for about 5 minutes. So needless to say, by I think it wasn't even the full weekend, we all ended up getting kicked out. And by the next year, we had to sign waivers to say we wouldn't do all the stuff that went down. But so that was Tampa. But like after Tampa, I was kind of bummed, and I'm like, dude, I really want to see where I go. So Beast of the East came up. And so I was like, I'm going to try it, because Chris skated Beast of the East, and he was like, I think he won the first inaugural year of Beast of the East. We're like, well, shit, if he's in it, like maybe we should all skate in it too. Yeah. So because he'd be a good like ruler of like, he's up here and we're all down here, but like he was up there. So I was like, all right, well at least
see where you fit in.
We'll see where we fit in.
Yeah.
So I ended up skating at the one from Allentown, and I ended up qualifying to. I made it. You had to get in the top 7, and I qualified. And I did all right, but the ramps were like stuck together on the floor with like duct tape. So everything you did was janky. And I was, all of us were like starting to complain. And then I was watching, and then Chris doesn't know this, but Chris taught me a lesson that day, is that he went and he skated that place like everything was perfect. Yeah. And he did like kickflip back tail on the quarter pipe, backside flip out, hard flip 360 revert like on the quarter pipe. And the one that really blew me away is there was a rail. It was a round rail, and went this, up, this. You know those rails, yeah. Right? And he did kickflip, front board, across, up, down, and kickflipped out.
Jesus.
And we're just like, he wins. You know what I mean?
He took Parker's advice.
Yeah, dude. Like
he just skated like he owned it.
He did it. And that was a reminder. My friend Bob Klotz, who I used to skate with as well, and Jim Lapping, Bob was there, and he saw some of the stuff I was doing. He's like, dude, land or slam, man. He's like, I saw that trick. You should have freaking had that. He's like, you had it, and you bitched out on it. And he's just like, and he was a guy I looked up to, you know what I mean? And I was like, I knew what he was saying, and I knew he meant it well, but at the same time, I felt like I was like, man, we can let him down.
Yeah. Damn. It's like harsh input.
Yeah, but it was something I needed to hear. And I was like, all right, next time I'm going to do it. So we were able to qualify for the championships that was down in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, sick, man.
So I was like, all right. So the guys from Cheapskates at the time, this kid, there was 4 of us who went down, and one of them was John Crozier. I don't know if you remember John Crozier. He used to ride for Zoo a while ago, but he's from Ambler, and he was the youngest one out of us. And then there's this guy Chris and this other guy that were like the cool guys from Cheapskates. They were like the up and coming guys, and they were the guys who were going to like change everything, right? Yeah. Type of thing. And I was like I was the oldest one out of them. I was old being like maybe 20 at the time or something like that, you know what I mean?
I know
like
that
21
feeling,
or 22. But like I also mixed freestyle in with my stuff, you know what I mean? And so I skated way different. Like they didn't understand why I skated the way I skated, but I had that background in freestyle. So I was like hybrid skater, is like what I like to say. And working with guys like Barker and all them, and they said, yeah, just skate it like you know it and just do what you want. Like, you should come up with your own way of skating. So that's what I always did. And some people were into it, a lot of people weren't, just like what you see with Andy Anderson, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was not on Andy's level by any means, but like, it's, at the time I was like one of the only ones who was doing that type of stuff.
There's certain types of people, and I'm a little bit this way, is like, there's certain things where you're like, you like a certain type of skating and a certain style, and everything else is like, if it's a little bit outside that box, not the way you do it, you're like, that's just something else that I can't understand at all.
Right.
I have that. I used to have that a little bit more than I do now. I used to just like my skating.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of selfish.
Well, when you get older and stuff, then you realize that skating is much more than just one particular style. It encompasses so many things, and you can learn from all different styles of skateboarding.
With the internet, it helps expose everyone to everything.
That too.
Yeah.
But just skating with other people, you know what I mean? Like, if you have a friend who just skates tranny and you start skating with them, when you go skate street, you're going to skate faster because you have to skate fast on transition, and your reflexes get faster. Freestyle, like if you have an injury, you do freestyle, it starts to build all the muscles around your joints, and you can repair faster, as well as you're looking at things in a more of a technical or creative way. You're looking at it differently. Like I do freestyle skateboarding, but I don't, I look at it more as I take a freestyle approach to skateboarding, you know, just as general. So nothing is out of bounds, you know what I mean?
You're not boxing yourself in,
No, I'm not just boxing myself in just a rolling, you know what I mean? So you got pushing and turning is the essence of skateboarding. Everything else above and beyond that is freestyle. And that's the kind of attitude that I had going into the Beast of the East. And these were 90-second runs, and which is a long time for a skate run.
A minute and a half is really long.
It's really long. So I did I did some nollie. I did like a nollie sailfish over the pyramid. I did like, nollie 180 flip over something, 360 flip, a couple grinds, maybe a couple attempts at slides or whatnot. And then I had all this time left. And they're like, I think I skated like pretty hard for like 45 seconds, maybe 50 seconds. I had all this time. They're like, keep going. And I'm like, and I didn't have anything more at that park because it was a bigger park than I was used to skating.
Yeah.
So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to do some freestyle that I knew. And at that time, it was only stuff that I saw in like magazines, or like people would send me like clippings or like drawings of like how to do certain tricks, because we didn't have it, it really didn't have internet then. So it was just like, okay, so I figured out enough and I did a run, and people were like, dude, that's sick. So my next run, I did that again. I came out and they're like, what else you got? It was, I think, John Fudala was on the microphone at the time. He was a pro for Zorlak. He's from
Zorlak.
He's from Virginia Beach. He runs like camps and stuff down there still. Like, he's like 50 and he still is spreading the stoke of skateboarding.
That's so cool.
Mid-Atlantic Skate Series and stuff. That's all him. And so they're like, hey, keep going. Let's see what else you can do. So I was working on stuff. So I was mixing freestyle into street and ramp stuff. And Willie Akers' dad and all them were there. They're like, yo, do your hybrid stuff. I was like, okay. So, because I had all this time. So I did, was it no slide, half flip, dark slide, half flip to like 5-0, like stall, and then it popped off.
What?
And then
did people get hyped, huh?
People were just like, what the fuck is that? And then I also was influenced by like Peter Smolik. So I always liked his no slide shove-its to no slides and stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then 360 finger flip to Fakie, which I almost landed to flat because it was on a big transition. It was like 6 foot, but it was an old school transition. So it shot you straight up and it basically landed in flat.
Yeah.
And then they said, you got one more trick. And at that time, everybody's hyped on you and you don't want to stop, but your body is like shutting down. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm going to try it, because I did it on banks. And I'm like, well, maybe if I did it on a bank, I could definitely do it. Maybe, and this is what I thought at the time, maybe I could do it on a quarter pipe. So I went up. I used to do Caspers on banks. So Casper, like Rodney,
like
used
a half
to,
a flip and
half flip and catch it,
or
and pull it back, and then it evolved into 1.5 flips and kept going. But at that time, I did a half flip over the hip and whatnot. So I'm like, you know something, I'm going to try it on the quarter pipe. So I don't know why, but I went up for it and I clipped in. So I got Casper on the 6 foot and I pulled it back in, and I just died at the end of it. And they're like, the hell is it? Do it again. And I'm like,
shit.
What? And I'm like, okay. And I did it. Like, there's a couple times I got pretty close, and I think I landed one, but it was sketchy. You know what I mean? Like towards the bottom, and it wasn't like pretty, but I did it, and I added something that day. And so at the end of the day, all the guys that were going out, they were like being cocky the whole way down, and just like, oh yeah, we got this in the bag, da 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 da. started announcing top 10. And I'm like, dude, I didn't make it in the top 10, da, da, da. And I'm just sitting there, just, cheering everybody on. And I'm just like, this is great. And then they called those guys' names, like 10 and 9. And I'm like, 10 and 9? I was like, wow. I mean, there was a lot of good guys there. Like Stormy Pruitt was there.
Legend.
Chris Murphy was there. Andrew Cannon was there when he was a kid. So like all these guys were there. This kid, Matt Moulton, and a bunch of other guys were there. And then the guys from Bodega were there too, like Oscar Wagenbuckler, and like I think Pete Deller was there, and a bunch of guys were there. And Jason Shumali was there too. And then this other guy, what was his name? He ended up turning pro for Vision. Smith, his name, Jamie Smith.
Jamie Smith.
That dude, he looked like a Hessian, but he could do 360 kickflip, double flips, like over hips, like every try. So all those guys were there, and everybody was pushing each other, and it was fun. So they're going, and then they get to top 5, right? And all right, bum, bum, bum. And then they said all right, in 5th place is AJ Kohn. And I'm like, huh? And I was already past that because I was just so happy because I just went and I expressed myself.
Yeah.
And it was the happiest I ever was at a contest. I was like, that just felt so good because I was so down from the Tampa experience because I wasn't able to express myself because I had all these new things I was working on and I wanted to see how they went, and I wasn't able to. So I was able to. So I got it all out of my system. I said, win, lose, or draw. I skated the best I could and I felt good about it. And I was just so happy. So I was just laying on the mini ramp just like this, and they called my name and I'm just laying on the mini ramp. I didn't even hear them. And they're like, AJ. I'm like, yeah. They're like, you just got top 5. And I'm like, what? And then you see Eric like, dude, what are you doing? Get over here, right? And I'm just like, okay. And they just start handing me all this stuff from like Echo and like all this like board and whatever. And I'm just like, okay. And I'm just standing there, and then they called John Crozier up. He got 2nd.
Damn.
And I think Chris Murphy ended up winning that one. So we were in the shop sponsored and skate park sponsored ones. And then there was industry sponsored ones, which Andrew was in. Oh, and Chipper was in there too. Mark Del Negro.
Yeah.
He was in it too.
Dude, Mark
was rad. Ever since he was little, regular switch each way. He was amazing. So we all did good. And we were like, wow, this is really cool. Da, da, da. But we had to drive back with the guys who got 9th and 10th, who were bragging the whole time. And now they were going to take it. And they see us with all this stuff. And we're like, yo, guys, like, we got too much stuff. Like, they're like, what size are you? And they're like, we don't want any of your stuff. And we're like, okay. So me and John are sitting in the back just like kind of talking to each other because those guys refused to talk to us the rest of the way back home. So we drove all the way from Tennessee all the way back up. And then a little bit later after that, I ran it. We were doing demo. I was skating in a demo somewhere.
I love demos.
That's what I do too. That's
contests crack me a little bit, but demos is like I like the pressure of a demo.
I found that was my calling card. So after I did that, I was like, all right, I went to some demo, and I think that's where I met Oscar and those guys like officially from Bodega. And they
maybe talk about. I don't really know much about Bodega besides just seeing some of those dudes. It's out of Jersey, right?
No, it's out of Long Island.
It's Long Island?
Yeah.
They've been around. Are they still doing it?
Yeah, to a point. I don't think they're doing it like fully, but a little bit about Bodega. They saw me. Oscar saw me, and he was like, "Dude," he's like, "You're unique. Like I want to get behind you." So he started getting me boards, and they were based out of Long Island. So they're right in the middle of Long Island, right by Hicksville is where they're from Belmore originally. And so I'd go out on the train and I'd meet up with them, and we started doing demos together.
It's the coolest feeling when someone comes to you or you line up with them and they say they want to support you because they believe in they see your efforts, and like that's such a it like gives you confidence. You know?
And I was just so like, wow, like, before I just get shop flow or whatnot, and that's different than like somebody actually coming up to you.
Yeah.
So he did that, and I was just like, wow, this is cool. So, and I got to meet Pete Deller, and there was this guy named Finkelstein who rides for them. He runs the Witch's Brew, which is out there still on Long Island. Jimmy Pelletier, who does DC Wheels.
Yep.
He was on the team as well.
Damn, that's solid career.
Yeah, and then it was him, and then there was a few other guys. Joey Saguna. I don't think he's skating anymore, but he was like an up and coming guy from Long Island. He was like friends with like Nick. He was like along the same lines as like a Nick Sassa, one of those up and coming guys.
Yep.
I don't know if they were friends or anything, but
I've heard his name before.
Yeah. So Saguna was there, and then this kid Dan Howell and a few other guys, and it was like this fam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'd show up in Long Island, and I'd do demos for them at like this little like dinky skate park that was behind this surf/skate shop, and we did demos there, and then we did demos in Buffalo, New York, and then we did demos at we hooked up with the guys from Krugco, and they took us around. Yeah, we hooked up with those guys and did demos for them. And our filmer was this guy named Theo. People may know him as like Coffee Guy. You know, he's the guy who draws, and he's like a graffiti artist, but he was our filmer as well. And he's like a legendary Long Island skateboarder. He's like one of the first Long Island skateboarders, you know. So he grew up with all those guys. But we'd show up at demos, and like Gino would be at one of the demos, and I'm like, it's freaking Gino Iannucci right over there. But what was great is afterwards, after all the demos, we'd go down and we'd sit down, kind of like old school, like Italian style. Like everybody would sit down and have like family style meals together. We'd all eat together, and it was a good bonding experience in regards to that, because you know how it is on the road and stuff. Sometimes you get into some hairy situations, or you're putting all your pennies together just to get a pizza or something like this, you know, and those types of things, or like you're loading like 10 people into one hotel room because that's all you have money for. Otherwise you don't have gas to get to the next spot.
Everybody's in though. That's the beauty of those situations.
Everybody's full in on it, and
because those sessions redeem all that bullshit. You're
no
like,
doubt
get there
about
and
it.
have those sessions. You're like, we're fucking kings, you know.
And you may smell terrible at the end of the tour
the whole time
because there's no way you're taking a shower. You know what I mean? It's like the water pressure went, or somebody flooded the toilet, or some shit, or they found out that you had 10 people in there and they kicked you all out.
Yep.
You know, so there was. You know, we went through a lot of stuff, and a lot of those guys I still am in touch with. So when I go to Long Island, I hit them up and whatnot, and I get to that. And Theo, the filmer, he actually owns a skate shop called Theo's Skate Shop.
Oh, sick!
Right in Long Island, right in Hicksville. So yeah, it's a small little shop, but he's doing his thing. He does art shows and all that stuff there. So they're all very much involved in skateboarding still. And then Jimmy Pelletier, he's doing the DC wheels. He's the guy who does like those 40-mile skates to like help cancer, or like the lung diseases and stuff like this.
That's
so
a good move.
He is 100% skateboarder, that guy, and all those guys are 100% skateboarders.
It's
so.
cool that they were down for you, because none of them skate freestyle. Like style.
No, because I skated street as well. Like I can skate street, I can skate ramp and all that, but freestyle was something that was calling to me. The dark art that kept calling me back. And then I just started.
It's just cool they weren't cool guys.
Yeah, no, they were cool. And then later on, like Joe Humaris, who was legendary freestyle skateboarder from New York, he rode for Walker Skateboards. Yeah. He became a team manager later on. I already left the team, the board team. At that time, I rode for Abstract after them. But when I was riding for Bodega, I was in art school. Yeah, I was going to school for industrial design, because after Tampa and that, I was like 22, 23. I'm like, well, if the skateboarding thing doesn't work out, I need to have some skills. So I went back to school and I went for industrial design. But then when I got into industrial design, that's when T. Eric Monroe called me. And he was like, he goes, what are you doing? Like, I haven't seen you in the contest. I was like, yeah. I said, I'm in school now and this, that, the third. He's like, do you want a job? And I'm like, do I want a job? He's like, yeah. He goes, I'm offering you a job. He's like, schedule your classes in the middle of the week, and I need you for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and possibly Monday, because we're doing this Beast of the East tour. Would you like to come on? Because Fidala had to step down because I guess he had a different job or something, and we need somebody to help us on the tour. So okay, so I did, and so I was able to start doing. That's when my love of demos started coming in, and I started doing demos for them, and then I was helping out with the products and stuff. And then sooner than later, they started getting me on the MC because they knew I had a little bit of MC experience, and they didn't want to do it. So I became their MC. So from 2000 to 2005, I was the MC of the Beast of the East. And from that, and I thought, I'm just going to school and I'm not worried about sponsors. That's when it all started. Yeah. So Bodega got on board, and then Nicotine got on board, and Capital, they were sending me boards because Bodega was a smaller company, so they could only send so many boards, and I was in Philly and everybody else was in New York. Yeah. So I could it'd send me like a board maybe a month, if that, and to substitute that, Capital would send me boards, but I'd scrape it off, and then they put Bodega stickers all over it and whatnot, and they were cool with it.
It's cool that many people were like down to support though.
Yeah, yeah. So I get these big boxes and stuff, and that's when Nate Sherwood and all those guys were on Capital. And then we did like the Capital Punishment video, which was, it's kind of a cult classic type of thing, because we sent them footage and we thought they were going to edit it, and they didn't. They put all raw footage of everybody's stuff, and we're just like, oh God, why did you do that? And they just put like heavy metal to everything. Yes. So I was just like, this is crazy. So that was like one of my first videos I was in, and it's it's one of those things you're like, oh, I got in a video, and you're like, but cringing at the same time. Like, oh man, why did they do that? There's still some decent stuff in there, but it was just not the way I wanted that first video to go.
Yeah.
But from there, like we got that, and then got on Beast of the East. So like Excel was sending us wheels, and then I've worked with Bones and stuff since the 90s. So
Hell
like
yeah.
whenever I needed like wheels or whatnot, they would send me stuff. But we would do testing stuff for like any new brand that was coming up. They'd have us test all the stuff because we were Beast of the East guys. And then we'd get stuff from Echo. We'd get stuff from Physical Science. We'd get stuff from any clothing company that they were affiliated with, or Zoo York stuff we would get.
They probably, some of them supported the Beast of the East, right? They're
Oh
all
yeah,
sponsors
yeah.
of that, too.
Echo and Zoo York were the top ones because
Yeah.
Echo ended up buying Zoo York.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they came in, and Rodney was still with them for a little while, and then he left and then did some other stuff, and then he ended up later on starting Shut again. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so they were all working out of South River, and we'd meet up and we'd do like 10 tours, and we'd travel from Maine down to Georgia, out as far as Chicago. And we were able to put on these contests for these people that would have not had exposure skateboarding otherwise. And we found a lot of talent. I mean, we saw you guys, you know, as I was mentioning, all you guys up here. We did stuff in Taunton at Skater's Edge. We did a contest down there. So it was that guy Duff, Ed Duff, I think his name was.
Yep.
He was skating there. And then Nick Dompierre. I remember Nick Dompierre, he looked very similar to another guy who was from Philly. He looked like Mike McCarthy. They had like the same hair, similar build when they were younger, and they all just like to go big. And I remember Nick at Skater's Edge, he gapped over the thing to do that handrail,
Which is ridiculous.
and he hung up the first time, and he ate shit, and he gets back up and he tries it again, and I think he does it. I think he did it, and we're just like, this dude,
He's a savage.
he's
dude.
a savage is a good word for it.
Yeah.
And so we saw them, and then when we went out to, we went, you know, down, then we go down to like Baltimore area and stuff like that. And there's so many good guys out of Baltimore, like, you know, Rodney Jones, of course, I skated with him in Tampa and all that. But guys like Joey Fitzpatrick, and then like all the guys who rode for View, and some of these guys now are like riding pros for like Toy Machine and stuff like that. Like all those guys are all from, and we remember when they were doing contests with us back in the day.
It's crazy though. It's there's parks out. That park, Jason Chapman, right?
Charm City.
Like
City,
certain
that's my
parks
man.
pop up. They're like hot zones. Skater Island was definitely a hot zone.
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
it's where we all like learned all our tricks, you know.
And that's where all the best of those guys came, and they all showed up there. And then it was, so that you have Charm City, and then Gary with View, and he had his group. And then there was some other groups that were also a part of that too, that were sending people into those bigger groups like Charm City and that. And then we went out west, and we went up to Chicago, and that's where we discovered Chaz Ortiz.
Hell yeah.
So I remember we always called him Little Caballero, because he was wearing full pads, had like a yellow Andy McDonald helmet, and he had his tips like dyed blonde. But he could skate vert when he was like 8 years old. He was dropping in on the vert ramp, and I'm like, dude, this kid's like a Sheckler in the making, like, you know, because I remember seeing Sheckler when he was like 8 or 9 at Tampa skating. He was doing kickflip to fakies on the vert ramp with no hands, like, and he was like this high out of the coping. I'm like, he's 8, like, holy shit.
It's
you know?
crazy, yeah.
And then we saw him, and we're like, yo, this kid, right? And they started following us. So like him and Tom Pop and Jordan Maxim and all those guys. We heard them, and then who else was it? Marissa Del Santo. We found her up there, and ran into those people there, and they would start following us to all the different spots that we go.
That's the coolest.
So they're able to start networking with people, and they were starting to get sponsors. And when they were starting to get sponsors, I was starting to get other sponsors too. So it was this like kind of renaissance of all different types of skating come together for people from all over, and everybody was getting work done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then we went up north into Maine, and we found, was it Lucas Magoon and Forrest Bailey? And I don't know if you know who those guys are, but they're both pro level snowboarders. Like they have like their own equipment and everything like that. But we had them when they were kids in our skate contest back in the day.
That's sick.
And you never know where people go, you know what I mean? But you know, I still to this day, and I mean, we haven't done like the official tour at BC East, I think ended in 2004. And we kept going for 2005 because we were doing stuff for like Panasonic. We were doing stuff for Core Tour, which was in Jones Beach. And we did some stuff for Tony Hawk and stuff like that too. Production style stuff, you know what I mean? And a few other events. But other than that, because we were about to go out on tour on 2005, And like 2 weeks before we went on tour, the corporate groups pulled their money out.
Yeah.
And they said you could do it, but it wasn't. It would have been really tight to get from one place to another. Like we might be able to get out there, but we might not be able to get back. You know what I mean?
Like we want to do it, but
yeah, we wanted to do it. It just wasn't. It was time. So then from there, I started doing my own contests and, working with other groups. So I've worked with.
Was that like, so when that fell apart, you just started being like, you figured like you could manage and do that yourself?
Yeah. So I did the Jam Skate and Create series, which we did a tour up and down the East Coast, and I even did it up in Canada and stuff like that. So I did it in Montreal, believe it or not.
Lataz? Or?
Yeah, Lataz. We were up there. So
I went there with New York.
Yep. So we were up there, and my friends, because with Beast of the East, we also had networks with like KC Projects, which was all from Eastern Canada, and they ran their contest series up there. So we connected with them, and it was good to see Costa and all those guys up there. And then Summer Sizzler Tour, and then Castle. So they would all send their best guys to our event. So even if we never met, we all knew who each other were. You know what I mean? And so we just networked, and we just tried to make the best of it, because at the time, like, it was harder to get product and stuff. And then the big contest was kind of sucking all of the stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the bigger contest, like Tampa, you know what I mean? Like if they had a chance to do a smaller contest to do Tampa, they're going to do Tampa. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things. So like, all right, it is what it is. And so I just did smaller contests, and I even did a couple in New York. Actually, Todd Jordan's brother and stuff like that at that skate park he was working at. We did a contest there, but everybody knew me from Beast of the East. So I was able to do stuff with Skate Fest down in Virginia for Fairfax, and we were raising money for for the Children's Hospital and stuff.
That's
so
sick.
then I was like, wow, before we were getting people together to get them stoked on skating and see how far they could go. Now we have opportunities to reach out and do a difference in these smaller communities, maybe raising funds for a new skate park, or to get something resurfaced, or for a skateboarding program for the kids or something like that, or to get them helmets, or to get them boards or whatever. And then the other people were coming by like, yeah, we'd like to do a fundraiser for Children's Hospital. We want you to be involved. So I'd go down to Virginia, and I'd skate with all those guys from Virginia. So, like Kobayashi, and there was a few other guys down there too, all the guys who rode for Fairfax. So this guy Emo, and like all those guys were down there. And we did that for many years as well, and we raised a bunch of money, helped
That's
raise
sick.
a bunch of money for the kids. And then
Sick that you did that with skating.
yeah,
So cool.
and then Jimmy was doing his stuff in DC, and we were always supporting him doing his. And I was like, maybe we just got to look at, instead of like, you have Damn Am and stuff started coming up, and I was like, they kind of have that like kind of on lock, because they got all the sponsorship, and they got all this money to form the sponsorships to be able to facilitate a tour, because the tours take money to do.
Yeah.
So they got that, and I'm like, all right, well, what else can we do that's different? Because they already got that, they already got the sponsors and stuff. So what can we do that will get sponsors stoked, but is different than what they're doing, that will still enrich skateboarding and get people stoked on skateboarding? So
And that's the side I like that side.
yeah,
Because it's cool to throw a skate event, but if you're going to throw a skate event to help a hospital, that's like extra,
Well, either that or just the outreach to the community at large, because there was and to this day there's still a stigma about skateboarding. You know what I mean? And it's crazy to me, because I remember growing up, and it's like people are like, oh, just a bunch of dumb skateboarders. You guys are just hooligans,
Druggies.
and just doing nothing but trouble. But then it's like when I went and I got my degrees, like I have a degree in industrial design and went to school for mechanical engineering.
What made you pick that?
What's that?
When you were picking industrial design, what made you lean towards that?
Well, it was one of those things. A friend of mine was going to the school, and it had it, and he was just like, he goes, I took an industrial design class, and this is totally you. Because when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I was a tool and die making apprentice. So I worked as an engineering
Like
apprentice.
die cut?
Yeah, like actually no, like building tools to make other machines and stuff like that. So doing threads and stuff like that. So you take a piece of metal and you machine it to whatever you want. You know what I mean? So I was doing space saver arms. You ever see the arms where you put the computer monitor here and it moves up and down and it goes around? I worked for the company that helped develop those. So I was coming up with different ways of how to pack them, and different pieces that would come out so you could pack more of them in, and just different aesthetic stuff and all that. and some functional stuff, but I learned how to build them from the ground up. So they taught me welding, they taught me basic machining, they taught me how to use the big presses. So here I am, like a high school kid pressing, like in like a factory building like these crazy things. So I already had that in the background. I went to skateboarding, and then I took a couple business classes. I thought, oh, you know, because I'm working at a shop, it's good to know. And then I just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I was really good. I always liked to build things, and I was mechanically inclined. And I always worked on small engines for my dad's company, his landscaping business. So I was like, my friend Leon goes, yo, you need to do this. He was going there for computer animation, and he goes to me, he's like, I think you need to take a class. So I'm like, all right. And at that point, you know, sometimes you get like peer pressure more or less from your parents, like, what are you going to do? Like, keep moving, you know, like the skateboarding thing is well and good, but it's not a question of when, if you're going to get hurt, it's when you're going to get hurt, and then what are you going to do? It's like, true. So that's when I went in, and I went into industrial design, and I took one class in it, and I just fell in love with it. It's product design, basically. And it was very much in line with what I already knew with machining. So like I go into the metal shop and wood shop, and I didn't have to take those prerequisites because I already had a proclivity in that. So I was able to go right in and start building stuff. So they hired me for the shop. So when I wasn't touring with the Beast of the East, I was working in the machine shops and stuff, rebuilding machines, helping teachers teach machines, and then like helping kids with their projects and whatnot. You know, we even did like molding with urethane and stuff. So I was messing around with different board designs and different wheel ideas and stuff.
That's sick.
And then, you know, it just kind of went from there. And then as I went along and just traveled throughout, you know, by like 2006, I traveled over to Europe. And I was I went to the big contest, well, not contest, a big trade show called ISPO. Because I went to ASR and I went to Surf Expos, and I've been through all those and stuff. And I was doing demos there, and then a couple of local ones that were like in Jersey I did as well, and did demos. And I found out there was places to do demos over there, and
In Europe?
in Europe,
Yeah.
And the shop that I was riding for at the time called Boards, which was out in Jersey, they wanted me to do sourcing for them for like their own boards, and they want to do their own clothing line and all that stuff. So it was a Board Retailers Association picked them, and they picked the guys from Ambush, which is down in Georgia.
Stormy.
Yeah, Stormy and all those guys. It was actually the Elliott brothers that went over there. And then there was a whole bunch of other shops that were all around the nation, and we were one of the shops that they picked. And the owner couldn't go over, so he sent me over. So I went over there. So I was in Munich for like 2 weeks.
Sick.
Which was awesome. And I didn't realize I remembered as much German as I did. My grandfather used to speak to me in German, and I never like spoke it. And then when I was over there for a while, it started coming out a little bit.
Oh, nice.
So they gave us like these guides from Innsbruck. They were the guys from Pirate Radio. They were the snowboard guides, like Gigi Roof and like Lars Osterly. Lars Osterly was my guide, and he took me around and showed me all the places to see. And we went into like retail shops to see like how Europeans did business, and just getting ideas for the shop. And then also, you know, in ISPO, they have a whole area where it's just people from, you have China, you have Taiwan, you have India, you have Afghanistan, you know, everywhere. Anybody who makes anything, it was there.
Wow.
And you could go down, and we're looking at boards, and, you know, we went to this one place, and I was with Eric Elliott, who was the guys who did Ambush and like buy skate shows and buy skateboards and buy wakeboards. That they owned all of that stuff. And we were going in, and he's like, AJ, you see that board up there? He's like, I think that's an old birdhouse shape. So he pulled it up, and I'm not going to divulge where it was from, but we saw it, and we were just like, that is the shape. And dude, this is the Jeremy Klein shape. Like, you got to be kidding me, right? And then we're like naming all these shapes. And
That's so funny.
And then we started networking with them, and it turned out like, oh yeah, these guys did this and this, and we're like, dude. So we got business cards. We started networking with that, and then, I mean, you could go there, and if you wanted like a North Face jacket with All I Need on it, you could find the person who does that North Face jacket, and they could work with you on getting whatever you wanted.
That's
or
wild.
something like it. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow. So it's just different. And then I was there, and I saw this area, and they were doing like the skate dice, and I went and I skated in it, and they had like a picnic table, and I was just skating, and apparently I was just doing my thing, and the crowd started forming.
Oh, sick.
And because I was doing some freestyle, and I did like, you know, no slide, shove it to back 5-0, like on the picnic bench. So high to low, you know,
Yeah.
and then low to high, doing stuff like
Wait,
that.
no, hold on, let me picture.
Yeah.
Nose slide, shove the back 5 on the lower part?
Yes.
Damn,
Yeah.
sick. Sorry. Damn, that sounds sick.
Yeah, it was just fun. And then I was messing around with some other stuff too. And like, you go like 50-50 front board slide off, just dorking around stuff, not really thinking it. And then I just did some freestyle because it was nice and smooth. And next thing you know, a crowd came up, and it was like the shoe company over there. And they wanted to sponsor me, but they're like, "Where are you from?" I said, "America." They're like, "That's the only place we don't sell." They're like, I was like, "Oh, bummer." But they're like, "We want you to come back. Like, can you come back like tomorrow?" I was like, "Okay." So they like bought me lunch and whatnot, and I got to skate all day. So after I did all my work and stuff, and I got everybody's notifications I needed, and then we did some cultural stuff. So I just show up every day and go skating there, and it was fun. And that's where I met Beckett Cologne. And that's when I started getting onto more of the industry side of things.
Yeah.
And that's where I met the guys from P-Skate, the tip technology stuff, the ones that you mill out the boards on the ends and then you put it on. Chapman did a version of it years ago, but it was the prototype version. So it was sticking out about this far. It was like 2-3 nodules that would stick out too far. And you couldn't, it wasn't flush with the board. And they had some issues. And the way that they had 2 aluminum screws that would screw together, but you had to have a tool on this side, a tool on this side. So I looked at it and I talked to Beckett, and he was an engineer and he was a skateboarder. And I was like, well, I went to school for engineering. I'm an industrial designer. I was like, he's like, well, here, I see you doing these demos, and he used to freestyle too. And he's like, let me give you a board. So I skated his boards in there. So I was giving him promo and stuff and that. And then he started working with me, and I started doing R&D with him. And so he would pay for me to go to like Europe and whatnot to, meet up with suppliers, meet up with Intersport to try to get these boards into like bigger retailers and things like this. So I worked for them from 2006 to like 2012, something like that, off and on. So
that's pretty sick.
Yeah, so I did research and development for them, and then I did some warehousing and distribution and stuff like that. So I was running North America and South America for them. And they had a bunch of brands that were being licensed through them. So we were doing that stuff for them. So I had like 5,000 boards in a U-Haul.
Dude, wild.
Yeah, that was my warehouse. It was one of those air conditioner ones, but like, I had like 5,000 boards. I had like boards from the Ukraine. I had boards from Germany. I had my boards, and I had boards from Sweden. And now the company is more or less in Brazil now. So they have a lot of them in Brazil. So it's funny how it all comes around, So so I worked for them and worked my way up, and I became vice president of the Americas and stuff like that.
It's sick to be able to like work and make some money.
Yeah,
involved in something you're passionate about,
and they were
traveling and dude.
Yeah, and it was great. And what was crazy is after I got laid off of that, and I worked other jobs too. Like I worked in the toy industry. I developed different toys. I helped develop flat ball, which is a ball that you crush and throw it and it pops into a ball.
Oh, nice.
So it's easier to throw a disc and it's easier to catch a ball. So it's all based off of hedral shapes. So I helped develop that, and then Zoingo Boingo and ZB Freestyle and a bunch of other toys. But I used to skate to work every day, and then I'd have time to do stuff with Beckett and travel and stuff. So I was very fortunate in regards to where I landed. But
that all sounds so fun.
But it was
to make a living.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But then also it's like just as in skateboarding, as we were talking about before, you have these highs and you have these lows. And when the bottom drops out, as you know, with sponsors, I mean, there was times like I had sponsors, I was getting paychecks. I was getting, every time I get a box, it was like Christmas time, and then nothing.
Yeah.
It was like you're disposable, right?
Definitely.
And that's the same thing that happens in corporate stuff too. So, I left P-Skate on, on terms. It wasn't the best of terms, but we left because they basically at that time, they ran out of money to do anything in the Americas. So they wanted me to move to Sweden. I couldn't do it at the time. So I was like, no, I couldn't do it. So we just kind of ended it there. So, we figured it out, and I ended up having to keep the warehouse for like a year. And then, but I wasn't getting paid, and I was paying because it was in my name.
Yeah, that seems crazy.
So I was like, well, you want these boards back to go to Brazil, you need to pay me all this back stuff, So they finally did, and they got it. And so that was the only rocky part of it. You
worked it out, though?
We worked it out. I mean, everything is negotiable, because basically what I told him, I was like, look, if you just pay, I was like, these are all the receipts for everything that I paid for. pay for this. Otherwise, I said, there's a guy who does closeouts, like when you go into like, just like what the shoe industry does, they close it out and they sell it to all these stores, right? That you can do it on discount. I was like, I got all these boards, I'll do it. And they're ready to buy it right now. And they're like, they thought I was bluffing. So I sent them like the agreement letter that I had with the guy. And I was like, about to sign this. I was like, when can you get it? We'll have it in 30 days. Sure enough, they had it in 30 days. Beckett shows up and he packed up the whole warehouse by himself because he was like, sorry for the inconvenience, but like, please do not sell this stuff. So then he took it down to Brazil, and now they're doing good business in Brazil. But some of the stuff that we helped with that, we did a production cell for Brazil. So it's like a portable factory that you can put in the back of a truck. So we taught, it's basically...
What kind of truck?
Like a U-Haul truck.
U-Haul truck.
Yeah. So it has like these robotic arms and stuff in it so that it will like pick up a board and it will do all the drills. So it does like CNC.
Wow.
So it does the CNCing, and then it would take it and it would put it on a hook and it would spray it. And then from there it would come around and you'd have an operator there and do like, just like what you do with the heat transfers and stuff. Have a heat transfer machine in there. We'd have some robotics in there, and we'd have it as a closed loop system.
Wow.
So we could do production down in Brazil, but not get clobbered on the import taxes because we're hiring local people, and now it's being made in Brazil. Even though, as you know, like Brazilian wood is not the best wood to make boards out of. So we're able to like sneak in some Canadian maple in there to be able to do it. So
wait, so like 12-foot, 14-foot, like a box truck?
Yeah, box truck.
And you fit all that in there?
Portable factory.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Because I have a space at my work, and like they put restraints on me, and I had to work within that, and I just keep wanting to push out, Yep.
The guy that I worked with, I mean, he was like he's a long-time skateboarder. He actually started like some of the first skate shops like in Sweden and stuff like that. With, you ever hear of WESC clothing? West clothing.
Yeah.
That guy was printing T-shirts in his things back in the 80s. So they were like the first guys to bring in Powell and Santa Cruz and Vision to like Scandinavia.
Oh shit, they got some good shit.
Yeah, so like Haas Lindgren was part of it, and all those like legends over there were all part of it. And Beckett was married to Per Holknick's sister, and Per Holknick was like a famous freestyle skateboarder from there. So he had all the ins and stuff. So they lived it up in the 80s, and they just blew through it. But like that's how he got his start with it. But he went to school for engineering and stuff. He was like one of those, you ever like meet somebody who's like that borderline between genius and insanity?
Oh yeah,
that's him.
Yeah.
So it was Beckett's an
I love
interesting
those people.
individual. Oh yeah, he made touring fun. You ever see that movie? What was it? The one with Russell Brand. It's Get Him to the Greek.
Yeah.
I was Noah, and he was Russell Brand, and we had to get him from Sweden, from Stockholm down to Malmo, and then from Malmo we had to go to Malmo back down to München or Munich, but we had to go through Amsterdam first. And basically, the owner goes to us. She goes, "Look, you have a week to get down there. You're going to lose Beckett like for about 2 days at least in Amsterdam, but you need to be there at this time and this type of thing." So. Yeah, I mean, I could just tell you guys all sorts of crazy stories about that guy. Some of the stuff at the Hard Rock down in even San Diego and stuff, and it was just like, dude, what is going? It's just crazy. But he was a genius. Like he could party all night, like just like Viking on a rampage, like straight up Viking. We'd meet up at night. We'd run the booth all day long. He'd do sales, this, that, the third, just kill it, and then we'd go in. And the most epic time I ever did with what I thought was epic for me is we were at the Hard Rock Hotel in San Diego, and we were at that bar. So you have, there was all the who's who of skateboarding was there. Like Ken Block was there, and like all these guys were there. And I'm walking in with Per Wallinder, Frank Messman, Haas Lindgren, and I think Don Brown, whatever. So like, I'm walking in with all these legendary
Godfathers.
Yeah. These are all my freestyle brothers. You know what I mean? And I'm like walking into a bar. How many? There's 5 freestylers walk into a bar type of thing, And of course we're there and we're like having drinks, whatnot. But of course we're talking about business. We're talking about like, freestyle conspiracy is a true thing. No, I'm just kidding. But we were just, you know, we're
Just
shooting.
taking over the world.
Yeah, we were just shooting the shit and stuff. And I think I even saw, who was it? Jean-Marc Vissette was there. Like, he wasn't at the bar, but he was in California. So, like, all the guys who ran business in skateboarding are all freestylers. Like,
Yeah.
Reggie Barnes owns Eastern Skateboard Supply.
Shout out.
South Shore. And he does Ocean Avenue. So he's
Yeah.
part of all of those. Freestyle skateboarder.
Reggie's been on the pod.
Yeah, dude.
Early on.
Reggie's the man. Like, yeah, Reggie's one of my when we started One Skateboards and stuff, I talked to him about it, and he got us distributed with them for a while, and he gave us a start. But Reggie's true blue, man. I love Reggie. He even helped us with one of our first freestyle contests, our World Championships.
What?
He couldn't make it because him and Bruce Walker found out there was a swell coming, and they had to go get that swell. So he goes, I put something in the mail for you to help you with it, and he gave us like $1,000 to like help with the contest. It was a World Championships we were running, and it was. And then Kevin Harris, for instance, like Kevin Harris is a good buddy of mine. I do the World Roundup with him, with Monty Little, who was a first generation skateboarder from Canada, and Kevin runs Ultimate Distribution. That's it. Haas Lindgren used to run all the distribution in Scandinavia. Frank Messman, he did World Industries, of course, and then he did stuff in other countries there, distribution for like Etnies and a few other groups. Etnies, America, and S, that's Don Brown and Pierre Andre.
Yeah.
Don, shout out to Don, he hooks me up with shoes still. Yeah, he's the man. He still hooks us up with shoes. They've always been helping the freestyle brethren, like on the DL, what I mean? And
you gotta.
And now he's got one of our guys like in the forefront with Andy Anderson, So it's like
you got an insider.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. But I mean, it's all from going out and just doing work, getting people stoked on skating. I mean, I went up to the World Roundup. Kevin Harris called me up and said, look, he came to a couple of my contests back in the day when I started doing freestyle contests in 2001. And I just did it because I thought it was something that needed to be done because nobody else was doing it. And from there, it just blossomed into this whole thing, and it made a whole new community. It was the work that I did, what Kevin did, what the guys in Japan did, what the guys did in Germany, what the guys did in Brazil and UK, everywhere. Everybody did little pieces. You just drop that little pebble, and it makes a ripple. Yeah. And then that ripple gets that, and next thing you know, you have a tidal wave.
Yeah, definitely.
And then now we have guys like Killian Martin, who was like in the Apple commercial, and he's like this big, deal like on YouTube. And then you have Andy Anderson, who doesn't know Andy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
freestyle skating seems like it would garner attention with the internet age because it's like so technical and strange and different,
Absolutely. And just back to our point, I know we're jumping back and forth with a lot of things, but it always comes back to the point when we were talking about what do we like better, is contest or demos. And it was demos is where we really cut our teeth within freestyle skateboarding, because we'd show up and I remember we did an Etnies demo, and they just got out of the bus, and you know how like people are like, oh, why aren't they skating like top level right out the bus? It's like because they were in the car for 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
And me and this guy JJ O'Donnell, we would show up to these events because we were there to, because we knew some of the people who were skating and we wanted to support them. But you could tell they just needed like a pre-show.
Yeah.
So we would jump over the fence and we'd do the pre-show so they could warm up.
Dope.
And then when they were all wound up, these guys were ready to go. And then, then it just looked more natural. So it wasn't like, because, like when you're doing like a big gap or something like that, it takes a few tries. You can't just do it like first. Sometimes it takes you 10, 12, 20 tries.
And if you're the show and you show up and everyone's just watching you and there's no warm-up, you're just going to get broke off.
Exactly. So. And you're going to get hurt and it's not going to come off good. So we're like,
and for the skater in the show that's expected to perform, having someone skate before you just makes it more of a session than a show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it takes it out, and also it makes them look better too, because then it's like the shop that brought them in or the skate park that brought them in, they're like, oh, wow, now they get to warm up. Now we get to see why their board is up on that wall.
Yeah.
And why that. So me and JJ, we would do that. We would show up, like whenever there was a big demo going somewhere, we'd show up.
Hell yeah.
And people are like, oh, you're crashing demos. We're like, no. It's like we're there just to warm up, and then we step back and we let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And we did that, and it got us a lot of press. We did that at the X Games too.
Oh, sick.
When it was down in Philly. We showed up, and the guys were skating the street stuff up here, which I skated every day because I lived right down the street from there. And I'd see Carrie there and like that. And back then, it was like everybody's like, yo, it was a big thing, you know, like X Games come in, and it's like, dude, can you believe this nonsense? Like, this is crazy.
Especially on the East Coast, because it was like skating was a taboo thing.
Yeah.
To have X Games made it official to like non-skaters too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it made it appealing. So these guys were warming up here, and we were doing shows out at the Franklin Institute, teaching science through skateboarding, believe it or not.
Rad. That sounds
again,
cool.
They were watching what we were doing, and I saw the connection early on that we could educate through skateboarding. So I was like, all right, so let's do that. So we got demos. So it was Fairman's, which Andrew Cannon was there, and Mark DeNegro. They were riding for Fairman's at the time. So they did the first show. I brought my freestyle guys out for the next show, and then they do a science show, and then we do it again. J.R. Neves was there. Everybody was there. And
the science show, what was the science show? What was in it?
We were talking about back then it was talking about like friction and simple machines and just basic Newton laws, you know what I mean? So rotation and motion and things of this nature.
Oh, dope.
So that's where it started. And we did that, and we did shows, and we'd have sellout shows. And then in between, we'd have time to go skate. So we'd go down and watch the street guys. And then they were warming up, and like, you know, there was like thousands of people there. And they're like, you know, some of the people were not being quite nice. You know, they're like, whoa, do it again, do a kickflip, you know, doing that stuff. But like on a big
being
scale.
Assholes.
Totally, you know. It's bad enough when you hear one person go, do a kickflip. You're like, fuck you. And it's like, but then you have a whole crowd of people, and you can't say nothing because it's like they're all paying there to be there. And just like, what do you do? So
you do a kickflip.
Yeah. So we went out, and we were promoting for our new show, you know, for the shows every time over there. So we were going around passing out stuff while these guys were warming up. So Joe Humares looked over, and he saw what was going on. And he's like, he goes to JJ and I think Terry Sinnott. And they go down into, so here's City Hall over here, and then there was that other area that was down below.
Yep.
Three of them went down there, while the rest of us are handing out flyers for our show schedule of when we were going to do stuff. And all of a sudden, you see almost half of the crowd just start moving over to watch these three guys in the pit skating. And a cop comes out because one of the kids saw them, and they were like, "Oh, I gotta go do that too." So he's there skating with it. And of course, they don't go to Joe, they don't go to JJ, they don't go to Terry. The cops try to single out the kid. And there's all these people here. But Joe's from like Nyack, from New York, right? And he's old, like he did like shows like in Washington Square and stuff back in the day. That's how he paid through college. Like him and Crazy Legs, the breakdancer and stuff.
Yeah.
They used to do shows on it. So he's one of those dudes, like, you know, you tell him what to do and he'll put on a show for you.
Street performer.
Yeah, he's a total street performer. So he comes out, and this guy comes out, and he's like, Joe just goes, "We are all here, you know, for skateboarding, da-da-da, and the city's making X amount of money, and these guys want to kick out this kid who just wants to be skateboarders just like everyone else. Boo this man," right? And everybody started booing. Right?
Just a rain of boos.
Just rain of boos. They're like, "Dude, that's messed up, man." Da-da-da. And then the other cop, because they always come in pairs, the other guy comes up, and he's like, brings him up. He's like, "What are you doing? You're going to cause a riot," right? So he goes up very respectfully to Joe Humaris and goes, "You just can't skate down here, you know. Could you like finish up?" "Yeah, we'll finish up and we'll go." And so,
On
okay,
our
thank
time.
you so much. And then and they got to skate, and it took some of the pressure off of those guys, whether they knew it or not. But like half of the crowd went over,
Yeah.
and did it. So we did that, and then we went up to the main area, and there was a little skate area, and skated there. And they're like, "Can you guys come back?" I'm like, "Sure." So we kept going. And we were just showing up, and then we saw the VIP tent, and Kerry and all them were there, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Hey." Guards like, "Oh, you guys know each other? Go ahead." And we had our skateboards with us. They let us in.
That's it.
So we're getting like free hoagies. We're like getting like, you know, food, whatever.
Part of the show
Yeah,
now.
part of the show. So we're like, all right, I guess it's working. And we ended up getting called by the Franklin Institute got a call, and they're like, "Guys, what have you been doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "We got a call from the ESPN executives, and they want to see you and JJ." And I'm
Oh.
like, okay. And they're like, "Yeah, apparently you've been showing up at all their spots doing these demos, and they want to know what it's all about." I'm like, okay. So we go to this museum, marble floors, mind you, polished marble floors.
Wow.
And cheese trays on this side, meat trays on this side. And they said, "You got 15 minutes. I was like, 15 minutes for what? They're like, "Show us what you got. Show us what all this commotion is about, because we've heard that you guys have been showing up everywhere and creating commotion." Not in a bad way, but we just want to see what it's all about.
And they got marble floors.
So we're doing primo slides and like cess slides and like, you know, doing that type of stuff. So we're
Fuck
like,
yeah.
yeah. And then JJ just got on a tear and he started doing like pogo finger flips and like truck stands, like pogo, and then jump from one truck to the other truck on this stuff and flipping it, doing handstand flips and all that stuff.
All that blows me away.
Yeah. And well, all these kids, all their kids were sitting on the floor of all these executives. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just don't want to fall. If I shoot the board out, like this is not going to be good. So I'm taking it easy. I'm doing primo slides. I'm doing rail flip tricks and stuff. And then doing a lot of street tricks too, because it's like I had those at the time. I had those really down. So like 360 flips and all that, because it's all freestyle stuff. Kick flips were all freestyle. Everything's freestyle. So we did it before they went into their movie, and they said, "Oh, that was nice." And we gave them like a little video to remember, and told us to contact us if they had anything. And they were actually considering it to be a possible event, but then Big Air came in, you know, and they did that, which is by all means that should be it. It's an attraction. But
it's like being shot out of a cannon versus someone playing on.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt about it. And but what's and I mean, and I remember that DC video coming out. Everybody at the bar when we watched that at Tattoo Moms, everybody's like, "Oh, we all got to step it up." So like we understood. But what was great about those guys is that they actually contacted us to do events.
Oh, rad.
Yeah, so we went to like Old Sayerbrook, because some of them went to church at Old Sayerbrook, and we helped them. Like they were raising money for like their church for like for the parking lot. So we went up there and skated. So it was myself, Terry, JJ, and Willie Science.
Like a fundraiser demo type thing?
Yeah, fundraiser demo. So we went up there and we started skating and just vibing with the kids and just kind of giving what they gave us, you know what I mean? So like, oh, we have some obstacles, and there's like a chair and there's like a whatever, and we're like, you know, and we're just having fun with it. So the one nun comes up, and I don't know if you've ever like seen nuns before, but like for me, like I went to Catholic school when I was younger, so nuns scared the crap out of me. And these ones had they had a whole full regard, you know, like the penguin suits. And the one, she just grabs my board and she threw it down and started skating. And
whoa.
I'm like, that is Sister Mary Loretto. I'll never forget her. And she starts skating. She's doing like tic tacs, and then she does ollies. Then she did a shove it. And then she did a kick flip.
What?
And I'm like, yo. And
that's
she
insane.
Pops the board up and she goes, I have 5 older brothers, and gives me the board. She's like, you better have a good show, because I just gave you your pre-show. And I'm just like,
shit.
yo.
She pre-showed the pre-show.
She pre-showed the pre-show. So we're like, oh man. So we're doing this, and then we're like, all right, what would be really cool to start to jump over? And then you hear Sister Mary Loretto over there, jump over the priest, right? And I'm thinking, oh man, if I nick the father, man, I'm gonna go to hell. So I was just like,
10 Hail Marys.
Yeah, not that I'm religious or anything like that at all, but it was just like there's that fear that was instilled in you, you know, because I went to Christian school. Whether it's, you know, there were some people who were Catholic nuns at the one time, so there was definitely that influence. So I was just like, oh man, this is not going to be good if I land on this guy. Plus, it's in front of all these people and they're chanting for me. So
chanting.
Yeah. And the priest was actually cool about it. We played it up. So I acted like I was running and jumping over him. Then I jumped over him with my skateboard in my hand. They said, no, you got to do it. So then we gave him a helmet, and then he took the helmet off and he put it right over his truck. So I ollied over that and
protect the boys.
Yeah.
That's a weird situation.
That is weird. So I was like, all right. So it went without a hitch, and we're like, wow, this is rad. And from there, that's when we started developing, like, wow, we should do, like, these were fun. Like, these demos were fun, and we were, like, getting people into it. So after I worked for Beckett and whatnot, I had a person came up to me, and I did all these shows with the Franklin Institute, and I did this. So it was already leading up to when I left Peace-Skate, and we started doing skateboard shows for schools.
Sick, man.
So
that's such a cool idea.
Yeah, my friend, one of the guys who at the time he was running an edutainment company, and he was like, he was watching me skate one day, and he's like, you know, AJ, there's a lot of physics in what you do. I said, I know. And he's like, well, can you explain it to me? And I did. He's like, how do you know all that? I was like, because I went to school for engineering, you know, and I went to school for design.
There's a lot of skaters that didn't get that education, and they can't explain it.
They can't explain it, but they can do it.
Yeah,
and that's one of those things. And you know, guys like Dr. Bill Robertson uses that to outreach to youth, at-risk youth out in like New Mexico and stuff. He does that. He's actually the University of Texas El Paso's dean of students, and he was a pro skateboarder for Walker skateboards back in the 80s. and he did like Got Milk tours in the 90s and all that stuff. So he was one of those dudes. He's like 50 some odd years old and he can still skate.
That's
good.
sick.
He talks when he's skating. When he's spinning, he's like, yeah, I got centrifugal forces. And you bring it in arms and it goes faster. You go out, it goes slower because you're making bigger or smaller circles. And, you know, one's a perceived force and the other one is a force. And he's explaining this while he's spinning, mind you.
Yeah.
So
no easy task.
No, and he would show up to the Franklin Institutes because they would call him to do shows. And he actually invited me to do shows with them. So when these opportunities come up to do this tour, the guy's like, you know, if you can write up something, I'll see if we can sell it to like a tour company. I said, okay. So I wrote like a 45-minute thing because I did a lot of demos. I was averaging about 100 demos a year at that point.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it gets heavier because I was between 50 to 100. And then there was other things like in 2004, I did like a Cirque du Soleil style type thing. It was like Cirque du Scare thing at the Spectrum for Halloween. We were Fear Park instead of Love Park. And we were doing like, you know, I would be doing freestyle in the mist and I was a zombie and everybody else who was like the sliders would slide up and scare the crap out of them.
Are there photos?
Oh, yeah, there's videos and there's photos and stuff. It's from Sudden Impact Entertainment.
All right.
And
I'm already thinking of the thumbnails.
oh, yeah, no, it was crazy looking because it was like Hollywood-style sets. But, you know, it was a theatrical theme type thing, but it was like Cirque style. So we do like 6 shows a night.
Wow.
And, you know, we'd skate for hours, you know, and we would just do this stuff. So that really helped prep me. So when this opportunity came out to tour, he's like, do you think you could do a tour? And I'm like, I know I could do a tour, you know, because doing stuff with Bodega and all the other companies that I skated with over the years, I was just like, I'm used to living off of nothing. I'm used to listening of a shoestring budget, living in tents if I have to, sleeping in the car if I have to, like, and I'm like, you're getting me out of something like I don't, you know, I just lost my job and I needed another job because, you know, it's expensive living in the city and stuff. And like, I was like, wow, like, what am I going to do next? So that came up. So it was only supposed to be like 200 stops, right? And it's
a lot, dude.
Yeah, it was.
It's a fucking lot.
It was. And it was like all over and it was crisscrossing and stuff. And they said, you know, just see what you guys can do with it, right? So they sent me out with a scientist, right? Scientist was a biology major. I knew more about physics than he did.
Oh,
right?
man.
So and he was a grad student, and his name is Tristan. And I said, Tristan, I was like, the best way for you to like explain all this stuff is for you to learn how to skate. Well, I never skateboarded before. I said, well, here's your crash course.
Yeah.
So basically, we went out on the road and we traveled for 34 weeks, and we skated at all the schools, K through 12. We would do K through 12, teaching the science of skateboarding, physics and mathematics and Newton's laws and things of this nature. So we developed this program, went out. It was the first touring one Bill Robertson's been doing stuff like that since like the late 80s, but he never went on a big tour. Like he just did Southwest. He did like New Mexico and like Texas, but he never did a nationwide tour. So this was an opportunity to take it nationwide. And I was like, well, how cool would it be to get so many more skateboarders out there? Like, let's just do it. So we did it and skate 5 days, and I do up to 5 shows a day at 2 to 3 locations. So we had like these foldable ramps, like the stuff from Fresh Park, so we were using those. And that was before I started writing for Ramp Tech. Shout out to Ramp Tech. But so we did the foldable ones, and we could fit it all in the back of a Prius. We took the back seat out, put all these ramps in there, put our PA system, and we ran one of those element rails right through the middle. And we drove that way, you know, so our arm was here on the rest, and it was the rail going through, and our speakers were in there, and then our bags, like our duffel bags, that was it. And we drove cross country with this thing.
That's insane.
And when after we were done, we would be in like an area, and people would find out about us, and we'd go to the skate park afterwards and skate with everybody. Next thing you know, all the other moms started talking, oh, wait, you went to the so-and-so school? Well, why don't you come to our school? Passing them out cards. They start calling people. Next thing you know, hey, you guys are going to stay in that area for another week. Why? Because we just have like 6 or 7 new schools that just want you guys there.
That's so crazy.
So,
that's so cool.
It was the coolest thing. And I was like, wow. And it was like you're out there skating with the people, and you were being able to shake hands, you'd be able to talk, have a conversation, have meals with them and stuff like that, and just build community through skateboarding.
I'm imagining all the kids are just so juiced because it's so unboring compared to like normal school, right?
It was a learning curve because like we had to figure out it was interesting because each grade is different and each school's culture is different, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, there's the kids who have privilege, and some of them were really cool kids, and other kids were just like they're too cool. You know?
Yeah.
Then there was other schools that we went to that were like in the hood, and they were the nicest, coolest people. You know, so it really ranged. So we had to learn how to read the crowd and then be able to respond to that in something that was fun, cool, and educational. That was our whole thing. So we did it, and we ended up doing 350 shows in 34 weeks in 40 states, about 50,000 miles on the car.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I earned my stripes there. I went out on the road at 210 pounds. I came back at 175.
Damn, looking like Nick Dompierre, all shredded.
Dude,
bro.
I was shredded, but I didn't look anything like him. No, not at all. My frame's too big. Like he's shorter than I am, and he's stockier build, and
Nobody looks like him.
Never looked like him at all. No. I mean, he's done his work, but no. So we did that, and then I got called to do another one, and it didn't work out with that particular group because they were trying to cut the budget. I was making like $1,500 a week.
Yeah.
Going out and skateboarding, but I was driving a lot. I was driving up to 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then
it's a lot.
It was a lot, and it was like, hey, we need a little bump, and then they cut it down. So. But they already used my image and all that stuff for advertising for the next year already. So I told them, I was like, look, either I get a percentage of it or you have to hire one of my guys that I've been developing to do shows. So they ended up hiring, Evan Brader, Lanky Bull is what he's named as. So they hired him, and he was on tour for years. And then they hired Stowe Strauss, who was a freestyle hybrid skater, and they hired him, and he's touring. And I think it's still touring. But what's crazy is on their flyer, there's still pictures of me in my youth.
That's so crazy.
Gapping over kids, and not gapping over kids. We were jumping over teachers. We're not allowed to jump over kids. We're allowed to jump over teachers.
Just priest.
Yeah, just
Only
priest.
Only priest.
Well, no, it was crazy because that was our thing. Like at the end, like you would do that at the end, and like we jumped over superintendents, principals, their favorite teachers. And I was like, yo, one teacher's cool, but would 2 be cooler? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, if 2's cool, what would be a 3? And then it's like, because they were bummed at first because they couldn't be the ones to jump over. But I was like, who's your favorite teacher? Who would be cool to either jump over or squish? And they're like, no. And next thing, it was like it was borderline riots sometimes we would go into these schools because the kids would get so into it. And then we just line up all the teachers. I just did one last week. I did a show. I was up in Ardsley, New York. And what's crazy there is you never know who you're going to run into when you're on the road, ever.
Yeah.
So there's guys, like I've been on the road before. When I was doing that tour, I ran into Russ Howell, who is like the first pro skateboarder. Like he's 70 years old and he still skates.
That's sick.
He's been skateboarding and surfing since 1958.
What a ledge.
Dude, he's amazing. He can still spin like over 50 spins in a row. Does handstands. He does ollies on his hands in a handstand.
Oh my god.
He handstands, push-ups, all that stuff. So we ran into him. We run into Don Brown. I ran into Per Willinder when I was on that tour, and they took us around Blitz when they were still doing Blitz distribution.
That's when I rode for Birdhouse.
When they had that little training facility inside it and stuff.
Man.
So I got to eat lunch with them, and then I met Gregor and a bunch of other guys. Like, so I would just run into people. But the one that I did the other day, I ran into this guy. His name's Dan Osborne, and Dan was an amateur for Shutt skateboards when Shutt was coming up.
Oh wow.
And he's a kindergarten teacher there.
What?
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. All the kids know that he skates, though. So they were just like, yo, Mr. Osborne, like, these are like your buddies. You should go out. And it's funny because I never met Dan, but me and him knew a lot of the same people. He's just a little older than me. He's like a year or two older than me. So we started talking, and we tried to get him out, but he couldn't because he was wearing like clogs or something like that. You know, stuff that you don't skate in.
Shoes.
Yeah, teacher shoes, exactly. Yeah. So he did the teacher shoe thing, but we did get him out. And I said, would you be willing to come out for us to jump over? He's like, oh, hell yeah.
Oh, sick.
He's like, as long as I'm on the end. I was like, my man. So we called out the teachers, and some of the teachers were like, you know, hesitant. And Dan's like, you're coming out, you're coming out, you're coming out. And we all lined them up. So we had like 5 of them. And we had, I was doing a show with John L. from All I Know Is Goon. And he was doing, it was his first show he ever did with me. So we did five people, and he jumped over all 5 of them.
What?
You know what I mean? And the crowd.
That's risky, bro.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he cleared them.
5 people.
5 people, but it wasn't from flat. We had a little kicker ramp. You know what
still,
I mean?
Still.
I know it's slippery ground. It was like on like a wood floor. You know what I mean? Like
good for him, though.
But bam, just over here, and Yeah, the kids went nuts, and I like to bring other people out, to do these things. So John was on my way up because he's from Sayreville, so
Jersey, right?
Yeah, Jersey, right?
Yeah.
So it's like an hour away from Ardsley. So I was like, dude, you want to come up? Like, you're kind of local to that area. I don't know anybody in Ardsley. When I went to Pittsburgh, I ran into he was a pro, Tommy Bujenik, who was a pro for Republic Skateboards back in the day.
I remember Republic.
Yeah, so Tommy Bujenik was a pro, and I was talking to the guys from Switch Signal, and I was like, yo, I'm coming out. The guy, Kerry, who owns Switch Signal. I was like, yeah, is there anybody that you would recommend to do a show? And he's like, well, all the young guys, they're kind of, they're kind of all over the place. They just want to skate. But he's like, let me see if I could talk to some of the old heads. And he talked to Tommy, and Tommy was like, yeah, I'm down. He goes, I used to do demos like back in the day, like skate demo, but I never did one in a school, but I'm down.
Yeah.
So we did it, and he was a little nervous at first, but then, because he has kids and stuff that are like that age, and he's like, oh man, like daughter's good, my kids are like going to like make fun of me for like doing this. But he gets out there and he starts killing it. And he does like he did 1-footed 360s off the kicker, and like doing like feeble grinds and Smith grinds across everything. He was just killing it.
He's been
like,
skating then.
He's been putting in that work still. And I'm just like, yo, you still got it. And he's like, well, and he was thinking like, oh, well, I wish I could still do this. I was like, dude, you don't need to do your biggest stuff here.
Yeah.
Just have fun. And if you're having fun and you're landing stuff, those kids are just going to be hyped. Yeah. So that's what we did. And so every town that I go into, I try to connect with like a local legend or like a local up and comer. Like I was in South Jersey and even parts of Philly. I'll take, Devin Flynn?
Yeah, Devin rips. I just saw him at Substance, actually.
Oh, right. That contest that he was at. Yeah.
He was ripping.
Yeah, Devin's one of my students.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Devin's the man.
Yeah.
His dad's super cool, too.
Oh, yeah. His dad has been skating since the 70s. So
yeah.
His dad is a longtime skateboarder. So when you have that in the family, it makes it easy. But he started doing shows with us at the Franklin Institute. We used to do like on the Ben Franklin Parkway during their science festivals. He started doing shows with us since he's been 8 years old. Wow. That's why he got so good at contests.
Yeah, you can tell he's been around it.
Well, when you skate demos, you relax.
Yeah.
And then you take that same approach and you go to contest, and your contest placings go through the roof.
He killed our contest, New England AM. He came and
didn't he win that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
That beast.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. He is. And, so it's, at this point now, it's just like, giving back to what skateboarding has given us. You know what I mean? I mean, I know skateboarding has been good to you, and skateboarding has been good to me in various ways. And it may have not been the way that we may have wanted it or envisioned it at first, but it happened. And the fact that we're still involved in it in some level, and being able to perform at a certain level. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that that you wish you still had, and there's stuff that I definitely wish I still had, that I could do things. But it's constantly evolving, And the good thing about it, because you're not 40 yet, right? You said you're what? 30?
November, I'll be 40.
All right, well, welcome to the club then. All right,
I'm close.
But think of it this way: like
I feel 65 though.
There's days where you wake up in sections. No, I get it. That's why you need your adult beverages from time to time to make sure everything is lubricated, but only in moderation, of course. But
that's true.
But it's
to be able to still play with a skateboard and actually contribute and maybe help someone else see the joy in it, or like give them some confidence, or teach them, or share.
Spreading the stoke is always the best thing, and I will never forget. Like, was it Russ Howell told me this, as well as Bruce Walker. Bruce Walker is like the OG of the East Coast.
I've heard.
He is he was the first coach of Rodney Mullen, and he was the first coach of Kelly Slater.
Heavy too,
dude. He's in the Skateboard Hall of Fame, and he's in the Surf Hall of Fame. I mean, that's legit.
You made it, yeah.
Yeah, and he lives in Hawaii now. You know what I mean? He just got married to this younger lady. He's like 70, and she doesn't look like she's more than in her 40s, man. Like he's killing it. He's killing it.
I'm happy for him.
But he's a tall guy, and he skates longboards, and they just came out with the Walker Pro board again. Yeah, because he had his stuff for Sector 9 and a few other things. And he kept skating all those years. And I remember running into him at Grind for Life, because I would do stuff with Mike Rogers. I have to give a shout out to Mike Rogers.
Mike's the man.
Dude, all the stuff he's done. I remember I wasn't there for the first one, because the first one was for him. But I was there for like the second and third. And I went down a bunch of times and did demos with like Tim Johnson and Benji Galloway and Andy McDonald and like all those guys. And I did the freestyle element, and they did their thing. And then we went out and had a good time, and Agent Orange actually showed up at one of the bars and like played, and I'm like, there's like Buck Smith and stuff hanging out with us, and I'm like, all these legendary skaters, and there's Agent Orange, like one of the most like epic skate bands ever, and we're there drinking beers and having fun skateboarding, and Mike Rogers is there going, "Yeah, buddy, let's go, let's go," and I'm just like, this guy, but yeah, I mean, and I'd see Bruce there, and Bruce, he skates a longboard, right? Because he's like 6'6" or something like crazy, right? He's tall. And he skates like he surfs. So like he's going around the bowls, and he's just the way his arms are, and he's chicaning, and he's accelerating through the turn.
Yeah.
And his turns were gorgeous. I mean, he didn't really do he didn't have to do tricks. He was just carving.
Yeah, I get that.
And we were just sitting there, and like even Buck Smith and everybody else is sitting there, and we're like, dude, we're just learning so much by just watching this older guy shred. And I talked to him, and then he came up, he did freestyle on his longboard and did some other stuff. And we're talking to him, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I'm not learning any new tricks. I'm just trying to refine my tricks and find the essence of the movement through my tricks, just so I can feel the soul of that trick. And I'm just like, yo.
Deep.
But, dude, and the way he was pumping and carving, I mean, carving is an art in itself. Like, if you go to a skate park and you start pumping around a bowl, just pump around the bowl, do a couple edges, maybe do a little air.
Yeah.
All the kids will be blown away. They think you're like a pro.
I know, they don't understand.
They don't know how to pump.
Drop back and forth. And
yeah.
I teach kids to start at the bottom. I'm like, start at the bottom, learn to pump the corners. Like,
just
so
do that,
important.
and then go around. But like when they first see somebody do it, it's like magic to them.
Yeah.
It's just like how it is. But way he was skating, and these were all guys who skated 20 plus years or more, right? Like our whole lives, we've basically been skating. And we're watching this. We're all sitting there like little kids, and I'm like, the master is teaching us again.
Yeah.
And all he's doing is carving. That's all he's doing. But the way he's doing it and the way he's getting speed, I'm like, how the hell did he get speed in that corner? Every time I hit that corner, I die. Oh, he came up and then he went down. Or just little nuances that you see. And then you really become appreciative of it. And know what it is when you're getting older, you can slow down your mind. Because at first you're like, I got to go, and jump. Now it's like, all right, I need to preserve. Yeah. And I need to get into that flow, and I need to get into that mindset that calms everything down, where I'm thinking, but I'm not thinking. I'm being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like being like, just like Bruce Lee said about water. And I never really understood that until I got older and skated. And then when you get into that flow state, you're just like, I just want to be here forever. Yeah. But inevitably, you're the next day you're going to go and throw your board down, or you throw your board down and you try to ollie and you're going to eat shit, or something. And it's usually
it's
something
fleeting.
simple.
It's always fleeting.
And it's just like, wow. But just to be able to feel that again, just that motion and that freedom, and that like your body's working together, and the mind and body and the spirit of the stoke is all around, that you can get into that ether again. And when you're around good people and guys who, because there's a difference between people who skateboard and people who are skateboarders. There's a definite difference. And for those who know, they know. Other people are like, well, what's the difference? There is a difference. Yeah. It's people who do it because this is what keeps them sane. This is what keeps them rolling. And there's other people who do it because it's an activity for social interaction. Yeah. It's a completely different way of looking at things. And I can say, just from talking to you and knowing you for these years and stuff like that, you are a skateboarder. Like, this is in spirit and whatnot. And
I don't know what I would do without it.
I'm telling you, like, I know exactly where I have been without it. Like, I would have been in a lot of trouble. Either that or I would not be here right now. I'll tell you that.
You know how someone's a skateboarder is because they grow old and they find ways to still participate and add value and keep it going.
Try to get away with it as long as possible.
Yeah, you just like don't ever want to leave it.
And it becomes almost emotional as well, because another guy I was talking about, Russ Howell, he would come up and he was our head judge at the World Roundup every year, right? The guy's like 72, 73 years old. The guy was on Johnny Carson's show. He was the first guy to tour skateboarding, the world tour skating.
Skateboarder on Carson?
Yeah, he was a skateboarder on Carson. Was it on a Johnny Carson's show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Back in the 70s.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. He was a stuntman and stuff like that. So he set the stage of how to be a professional skateboarder before anybody. Stacy Peralta went on tour with Russ, because Russ was like 26, 27 in 78. Yeah. Right? Stacy was a kid still. Huh. So he was on GNS. So when Russ would tour, Stacy and them learned from Russ. And I think he took Stacy for his first tour, like down in South America and all that stuff. Jay Adams even said to him one time, he's like, I have a Zephyr tattoo, but I should have a Russ Howell tattoo, because if it wasn't for Russ, because we wouldn't know how to do all this stuff,
That's sick.
because he was more of a freestyle guy, of course, and he did slalom and he did all that stuff, but he can do like pretty much any flip trick. I've seen this guy do almost any flip trick without ever learning how to ollie, because he was already skating way before the ollie even existed.
That's sick. There's so much to do before the ollie.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. That's half my lessons, is teaching them everything before the ollie.
Body movement, head and shoulders. Head moves shoulders, moves hips, moves legs. Just the kinology, the kinesthetics about it. Just doing that. And what's crazy with Russ is he was a physical education teacher. And he was also a math teacher too. So it's like he understood the technical side, but he also understood the fluid movement side.
Yeah.
So there's even like a video on like YouTube, you'll see it, and he's like, and it talks a little bit about Russ Howell. It has like this real cheesy like 70s music, and
Nice.
He's like skating through California, and he's like, and he goes, through physical education, I can see it being applied in the schools, and I think skateboarding should be a part of the schools because it teaches perseverance, it teaches, getting over obstacles, and like all these good things that help with
balance,
focus,
determination,
community. He was even saying that stuff, and he's like, there's ski clubs, but it's not accessible to most kids. He's like, but a skateboard is accessible to all kids.
Fully.
So he's there talking about, I was thinking about maybe doing a Tai Chi style. So he's doing Tai Chi on his skateboard.
Wow.
And then he was doing like some other type of dance type of thing. So he had, of course, he was skating with like a cute blonde girl from California, like the surfer girls, and he's putting her up on his shoulder, like, and rolling with her, like kind of like what they do on longboards.
Yeah.
On the long surfboards, that is.
Yeah.
When they would do like the pairs, he was doing that on skateboards, like in the 70s and stuff.
Gnarly. That was probably so sick to see, though.
And then he would do like safety shows, like jumping over people and doing tuck and rolls to show how you can be safe on a skateboard and just promoting it. But he told me something really epic too, and I remember, I'll never forget it, because I had an opportunity to, like, I've worked with him for years, right? And I've known him and I've looked up to him, and he's invited me to his house. I've broken bread with this man, and there was two instances that really got it, that I knew was special. One was Lynn Cooper. Lynn Cooper he was a skater for Sure Grip back in the 80s. He was a professional, and he also filmed a lot of the old contests, like the Keyhole Bowls, like when McGill did the first McTwist. He has it on film. Like, he was the first one to film it. And he's a real good historian of skateboarding, but he's been skating forever. He does like the Daffy work, the two boards, and he can carve backwards with them and stuff. He was in the after things of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, the guy on the two boards. That's Lynn.
Wow, cool.
And Lynn was doing a video, like, kind of, because we were doing all this stuff for freestyle, and we got everybody together for the World Roundup, and he was like, he wanted to interview all of us, and he's there talking to everybody about different questions and talk about our skating and stuff. And then he goes to Russ, and he goes, Russ, asks him all these questions, and he does this whole thing like, I was on Johnny Carson. There was this little thing called a skateboard, and we chopped our little sister's skate apart, and we took our piece of wood from our dad's wood pile, and we stuck it together, and we just went out and started rolling and having a good old time. And he just boom, 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 boom. He's like that. Then Lynn asks him, what impact has skateboarding made on your life? And Russ started going at it, and then he stopped, and just the emotion hit him. And he had to like stop for a second, and he got like, clamped up,
like choked up
a bit. And I'm just like, yo, like, and I'm sitting like right over there, and I'm watching this because he's sitting there, I'm sitting over here, and I'm watching because I'm next after him.
Yeah. And
he's doing this blistering interview, and I'm like, great, I have to follow behind this guy. Like, this is gonna suck. And he just opened his heart of why he loves skateboarding, and and he tells all the competitors, he's like, look, he goes, you know who the best skateboarder is? And they're like, what? And they're like, and they start naming people. He's like, no, the best skateboarder in the world is the one who's having the most fun.
Yeah.
If you're having the most fun, you're doing it right. Everything else follows behind it. And if you're not having fun, it's not something worth doing. And he quotes like things like Aristotle and stuff all the time. He's like, if we are playthings of the gods, then let us live our lives in play.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's how he lives his life. He thinks about everything through his life, all 73 years of him being here, or 72 years, whatever it is. He looks at it through a skateboarding lens. Like, he's older than my father would have been, right?
Yeah.
And I can talk to him like I'm talking to you. Like, we talk to our students same thing. It's the same
That's
level.
sick.
It transcends age, it transcends race, it transcends economics, all that type of stuff. It matters what you do is on the skateboard and how you do it, and
He's still connected to it. That's
Still
why he's able to
connected to
have that conversation and touch.
absolutely
Remember it.
I
People
know.
grow old and then they forget the shit.
And he's having, you know, he was having a little trouble with it too, and I understand it because I was going through the same struggles, and I'm sure you, Evan, as well as anybody who's watching this or listening to this may have had this issue too. Is that you remember like how you had it and like that you were on it, you know what I mean? And then you realize that things are fleeting, you know, and you just want to have that just one more time, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
just like what I saw Tony Hawk when he said, this is going to be the last trick I ever do on this one, you know?
Yeah.
And that became real to me. And I was just like, you know what I mean? Like, oh man. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, well, that's not now. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing as best as I can for as long as I can. And wherever the chips may fly, they're going to fly, but I'm going to have fun doing what I'm doing in the meantime, right? Because I look at it this way, Anthony, you're going to be turning 40 soon, right? When you hit 40, actually when you hit about 35, but 40 especially, you basically, right now we're at the age of less expectations, right? So whatever we do is gold. Whatever you do is gold.
Yep.
I mean, you do an ollie over like 3 or 4 boards and you're like 40, they're like, dude.
Yeah.
You know, you do like a 6 set. You don't have to do 10 sets. You don't have to do 15 steps anymore. Most we ever have to do is 8 at the most. There's no need to anything above that is testosterone based. You know, anything above 10 really, or even 8, depending on the 8 set rather, it's just extra. And it's an ollie, it's a kickflip, it's whatever. You're doing it down a gap, but now you're adding the danger to it. But if you don't have the knees for it, why you do it? You know, and those guys like, they don't last long. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys don't last long. So you can still do gaps. You can still do that. 15 stair rail, 8, got you. You know what I mean? And that's all you need. Because then when they're like, you know, did you see the one that Ron Allen did recently?
Oh my God, dude.
That he tried?
Scared me, yeah.
Dude, I was like, but
he's so yoked though. He got out of it.
Do you
fine.
see how nimble that man is?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, he comes up 50-50 down, across down, and then he gets hung up and he just dives, just tuck and rolls.
60 years old.
I don't think he's 60 yet. He's just about 60.
He's about there.
He's about
I mean, at that point, you're 60.
No,
falling like that.
His body's probably more like 70 or so. But like still, but like, yeah, he tuck and rolled out of that. And
amazing.
Like, dude. And I remember seeing, was it Lance Mountain and Ron Allen? They showed up at the DC Plaza when they were doing the Maloof Money Cup.
Oh yeah.
So Manny Santiago and all those guys were there, and I've known Manny and Dave and all those guys since they were little too. They were these kids as well.
Massachusetts in the building.
That's right. And was it they were there, and all of a sudden, like, nobody was hitting that big rail. Nobody was hitting it. Lance Mountain was like, screw this, and he like cavemanned it. And then Ron Allen ollied onto it. And then after that, you just see Manny and them just look at it, and they're like, man, I gotta go skate that. These old guys are like taking it to us.
Yeah.
And Manny didn't want to go up and skate it at first, and then he was like, oh man, Lance Mountain and Ron Allen just did it. Like,
kind of got to.
No, there's not kind of, you got to do it. You know, so everybody then went up and then started doing it. But they were the ones that, and I was like, look at that. They just did something simple, right? But just their presence there made all the difference. And they did something that like wasn't as complicated as what, like, Manny flips in, flips out of stuff. Like, he's ridiculous. He's always been ridiculous. And they saw a guy that came before them who was way past what would be quote unquote their prime.
Yeah.
And still threw it down because it was part of the session and it needed to go down. And they threw it down.
Yeah.
And it was like,
that'll get you fired up.
Dude, they're doing it. There's no excuse. Like, I still got knees. I still got this, you know, like, I got to do it, you know. And, you know, and I saw that the one time with Russ. Like, he got really emotional one time, and he had to get his hip replaced. He got his hip replaced, and he didn't think he was ever going to skate again. And he was really down. And he goes to me, he's like, yeah, he goes, you know, I just don't have any more to give. And I'm like, dude, just you being here and just you being you means so much more than you ever know. Yeah. Because that's the other thing with skateboarders. We always put ourselves down. We always are looking to strive higher, and we don't appreciate necessarily what we have, because we always want to be better, and we're always trying to push ourselves to that next level. And if anything, we degrade ourselves. We're harder on ourselves than most people will ever be on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, like,
that's how you are able to do those tricks, is you're not satisfied just because you did one sketchy. You're like, no, we got to keep going because I'm building towards something else. And you're just constantly progressing towards something.
Yeah.
So,
and I see a guy like Devin, and like, you know, he's starting to, like, you can definitely tell he feels it a little bit, right? And he'll like just growl at it and just be like, oh, and he gets all pissed. So we want him to feel that pain, but at the same time we try to curtail it, be like, yo, dude, guys, remember, you're just having fun. You know, if you don't get in this one, we'll work on something else in that. But we'll work on something else and it'll bother him. And then he'll be able to relax his mind, and then he'll do it like first or second try afterwards. You know what I mean? So it's teaching those young guys the tricks of the trade, you know. But when you get older, it's like you remember everything that you used to do. You remember all this stuff. And Russ had that. And so I was like, Russ, why don't we just go skate? He's like, okay. So we get into the curling rink, because that's where the World Roundup is, in the big curling rink. And it was on Viceland. I don't know if you saw that with Rick McCrank and stuff when he tried to skate in the freestyle contest.
I didn't, but I got to now.
You got to check that out. You'll hear my voice because I'm seeing it and stuff
sick.
like that. And Rick got an education. And then the next one was Frank Guru was learning how to do slalom, and he went to a slalom contest. Frank is a character and a half. I love Frank.
I once wore his dirty shirt, just in case you're wondering. Dude.
Oh, jeez.
And party. He likes to party, dude.
Don't I know it? Don't I know it?
It was for a photographer. We were shooting a photo with Gabe Morford in SF, and I had a black shirt on. He's like, dude, can you switch with Frank? And Frank is like, you could tell he had been up all night partying, sweating in like the Tenderloin or something.
Yep.
Fucking bright orange shirt. I'm like, yeah, I guess. Put that thing on. Got the photo.
I was about to say, did you get the photo? It was well worth it then. It was well worth it. But yeah. So, you know, you see those guys in it. And then it was right around that time, and Russ was like really feeling down about himself, right? And then I was like, all right, well, let's just go skate. So we had to go there, and we had to get there early to set up for everything, because I had to make sure the mics were working, and he had to make sure that his computer system was working. So we did that, and then it was just us. And I was like, let's go skate. So he's like, all right. So we're skating in this thing, and we're doing endovers and like G turns and just sliding around. You're just having some good time. And then it started getting serious. And then Russ started doing his judo falls again. And he's like getting up and he's like going it. And then, you know, it's getting pretty, you know, we're getting in the session. You're getting the sweat on and stuff, to the point where I'm like, oh man, I got to get something to drink. So I sit down to drink, and Russ is still out there doing his thing. And then I was about to get up and start skating, and I'm like, I may never ever have this experience again. Yeah. So I just sat there and I watched him. Because I knew, like, I was like, I'll skate in a little bit, because before everybody counts in, because once everybody gets in, it's going to be hard to get a spot. But I was like, I may never have this opportunity again. So I just sat there and I was just watching him, and he was just getting in that zone and just putting his whole being into it.
That's sick.
It was like surreal. It was just like, it was almost like you were watching like a grandmaster. I mean, really, it was like watching a grandmaster in like Kung Fu, but you saw it in skateboarding, and just his pure love and enjoyment of it. Yeah. And how he was trying to fight to hold on to it as long as he possibly could. And afterwards, he was just like, he got a little emotional. He's like, thank you. I needed that. And because, you know, earlier in the day, he comes up to me and he was just like, I don't have, you know, as I said before, he didn't know what he had to give. And I was like, dude, that's not today. Like he goes, and he tells me this, and it was like one of the heaviest things that somebody told me within skateboarding career. He goes to me, he's like, if I ever become a burden or I get in the way of your guys' progress, let me know and I'll gladly step aside. Like, he was ready to put it all out for the betterment of skateboarding, not for his benefit. Yeah. And you know, it gave him a lot of benefit. It gives him a lot of peace of mind, gives him a lot of soul satisfaction. Like, he needs skateboarding.
You feel like whole when you live for skateboarding for so long, and then you just like, as you age, it's like you feel like you're losing something, but then you have that session and it like puts you right back and feel complete again, you know? Like
you will go through hell on earth to get that one more session. Yeah. And that's a lesson. Like, whenever I don't know if you're spiritual or religious or anything like that.
I'm open.
Yeah, I'm more like that as well. I'm more spiritual, I guess, than anything. But like, at the same time, like you know, when you ask the universe or Hashem or God or whatever you know, or Allah or whoever, when you put it out into the universe and you say, I want strength, the universe will test you to give you that strength that you need. Yeah. You know, and people are like, oh, well, it just gives me strength. You have to go through hell to get strength. Yeah. You have to go through turmoil. You have to go through mental or physical or something. You have to give something to get something. Yeah. And that's one thing I've always respected about skateboarding. And that's the thing, is as soon as you disrespect skateboarding within regards to that, or disrespect yourself or whatnot, because to me it's all within the same.
Yeah.
You're a skateboarder, you within skateboarding. It's the same thing with me, is that if we don't give that respect to it, it will drop us on our ass faster than we will ever know. And then you're sitting down on your ass and you're like, it gives you that perspective, and you're like, yeah, I need to pay attention, or no, I need to get my shit together, or oh no, I gotta, like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? It gives you that point of reflection. And if you can have that time to reflection, so you can become the observer and have that moment. You know, I tell my students, and I don't know if you tell your students this, students rush through tricks because they want to get to the end goal, right? We've already got to the quote unquote end goal of what kids coming up who want to do something with skateboarding have done.
Yeah.
We did the amateur circuit. We got sponsored. We ended up getting pro. We ended up being getting paid to do it, right? Now we're going into the next phases, giving it back, whether it's through lessons or through doing getting into the industry, you know, selling boards, shoes, whatever, you know, getting into that to give back, as well as doing, you know, clinics and stuff like that. But what I tell my kids is, the thing to remember is that they have youth, right? And youth is fleeting, but at the same time you have time. So your mind moves faster than time. All right. Time is a man-made constraint, right? So what we think here is taking like forever goes like that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you remember, like for me, 20 years, like I just had my high school reunion this past year. You know, it's 25. I graduated in 96, right? So I graduated in 96, and that was 25 years ago.
Fast, yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah, the older you get, this feels like it speeds up, man.
It does. That's absolutely right. So from there, what you do is you get into your mind. So like when you're working on a trick, the kids are like 50-50 grinds. Like
I tell them to slow down because they always like want to rush or get it done, or they're trying to use just their adrenaline to make it happen. And I'm like, I always try to tell them, if I can tell they need it, I'll say, slow down. We have plenty of time. Take your time. Yeah. Make it a good try. Make it a good try. Let's actually not just try to bail again, you know, because you get stuck in those routines. And
or
so I do tell them, slow down a little bit.
Or you get them to think a little bit. Like I like to break it down like systematically. Like doing freestyle for so long, you break your tricks up into pieces.
Yeah, oh yeah, I can see that.
So when you're doing that with a kid, you're like, all right, so what's the first thing we have to do for 50-50? Like on a quarter pipe. Oh, we have to learn how to kick turn. Okay, good. You got kick turns down? All right, good. Let's get that down. All right, and then we do an edger grind. All right, so we're slasher. All right, we do a slasher. Cool.
Love slash grinds.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top of the ramp, and I want you to stand on there and look down with the 50-50 and just look down.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now what we're going to do is go to that curb, and I'm going to have you sit here, and I'm going to have you push down on the tail, turn off, and then go in. So it's like a little drop off. Get used to that.
Get used to lifting and controlling it.
Exactly. And then you put them back on the quarter pipe, and then you spot them, and they go down, push down on the tail, turn the tail, and then boom, right in. And then from there, I teach them that trick where you slide your back wheel, and it connects to the coping, right? And then from there, you just lean in with your toes, and you just turn in like a kick turn, and it goes automatically. And you spot them a few times. So I'll do two hands, then I do one hand, and then I'll do a catch type of thing. And then when I'm looking like I'm going to catch and I think they got it, I just step away.
Yeah, let them have
boom. And then just like this, and I'm like, you just did it. They're like, what? And then that enthusiasm goes through the roof, and that energy is spread out. And I'm just like, you know, even though I'm not skating right now, I'm doing it because this is passing it down and doing it. And
you're reliving it from a different angle, a different perspective, like seeing it again in someone else.
Exactly. And you're able to like slow them down because you remember what that's like.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, you're just rushing it a little bit. So what do you have to do first? All right, break this down. This is all I want you to think about. And then if they miss one thing, I was like, just think about that one thing. Or like, they jumping out because they're afraid, right? And I'm like, it's all right to be afraid, you know. And so you have to keep your knees bent. Just imagine your feet have magnets in them. And I'll just keep repeating that. Your feet have magnets. And then I have them repeat it. And then they're like, my feet have magnets. My feet have magnets. Especially when they're young kids, like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
They get really into it. Like, my feet, I'm magnetic. I'm magnetic. I'm magnetic. And then boom, they get right it. And they're just like, I was like, you must be magnetic, man. Look at that. You know, and they're just like, what? You know, and it's just, but again, spreading the stoke in a different way. And it's also, it's building, you're still contributing, you're still
Yeah.
giving it back. We used to do it like with our trick selection and what we brought to the scene.
Yeah.
Right now we can still do that. We just bring it to the scene in a different way, and we do our skateboarding not necessarily for our body and mind, but more for our spirit the older we get.
Yeah, I like that.
You know?
Fully.
You know, because when you're in it, because you know how it is, like when you're a pro skater and you're trying to make that money to pay rent and do all this stuff, especially being from the East Coast.
Oh yeah.
And especially if you live on the East Coast and trying to do it, which is
It's a hustle. You got to work so
it's
hard.
a hustle. Like you, you know it.
Yeah, the industry is not. It's starting to pop up here and there, but like California's always been the spot where like there's all the industry. Out here it was always like you're an outsider and you got to work towards it and travel and leave your home. You know.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I'm glad that a lot of the California companies are now being run by East Coast guys.
It's crazy, man. AJ, this has been a blast, dude.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. We're just about out.
We're going to have to do a part 2, though.
Oh.
I wonder how long we went. How long do you think?
I don't know. It was probably about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
You think?
Know.
Let's see.
I don't know.
Dude.
Stream of consciousness.
2:49.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
No, dude, I've done 3-hour podcasts before, and
Okay.
this one was super fun. I know a place where we can end it and then we can pick up again when we do part 2.
Okay.
But maybe just end it with like, what do you have going on these days, and anything you'd want to promote or share.
Oh, okay.
That would be sick, man.
All right. So just do it right now.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, I guess you guys are going to plug in for. I guess you want to do part 2, so that's awesome, man.
Definitely.
I appreciate it.
Dude, this was seriously, before we go, this was so fun. I need like a skateboarder to talk like this. Like, I talk to a lot of my team riders, and they're younger and they're more into like skating now, you know.
Yeah.
But you know all the people, especially even a generation a little bit before me. But we know all similar people. Like all those names you're throwing out, I'm like, oh yeah, because I watch them all in magazines and videos growing up. So
exactly,
this was a dream for me.
Oh, that's great. No, I was definitely stoked on it as well. You know, because the same thing like with my students or even my team as well. It's the same thing. It's like they just look at you kind of cross-eyed, like what? And I'm like, yeah, you guys need to push yourselves more because you guys are slacking. What do you mean I'm slacking? I'm doing it. I was like, you have no idea. And then I show them they're like, oh, I got kickflip 360s. And I show them a picture. I show them a video of Dave Kohn doing it in 2000 at Tampa. First trick, first try. And I'm like, he did that in 2000. First trick, first try.
They have no idea.
And you're just learning it now. It's like, yeah, you guys are slacking. You know what I mean? But yeah, no. So, I mean, what, you know, just to end it with in regards to what I got going right now, you know.
Yeah, please.
So I mean, right now I'm up here. I was glad to be able to stop by because I'm up here for an engineering work that I do. So I'm learning that, but I'm glad I was able to do that and I'm trying to get a session in. Maybe go down to Skater's Edge and stuff soon before I go back. I may stop by and say hello to everybody down there. That's a good vibe down there. I enjoy skating with those guys down there.
Make sure you text me if you go.
We'll do.
If I get free, I will.
Yeah, I'll let you know. And then I'll see. It all depends on when I get out. You know. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so the only thing I mean, we're rebranding our skate company called One Skateboards. I've been doing one since 2006. And yeah, so we're like doing it like 15, 16 years already.
Wow.
So it's been good. And we have a new team of guys right now that we're developing. We have this guy named John L. from All I Know Is Goon. He does his own clothing company. He's an older guy, but like the dude rips. He's just like, you know, we put people on one that like guys that I think need to get some exposure out there, but wouldn't get it any other ways. You know what I mean? Or they skate differently. We also have him. We have Arjun Shaw. He's one of our pros for one. I've known him since Beast of the East days when he was a kid. So we've been working together with trying to develop the new, the new direction within it. We've had a bunch of different directions throughout the years. And then, of course, the pandemic threw everybody into the loops. And now it's like it's time to get back to work and get it done. So we have Arjun. We have John L. We have this kid named John Boy Carson. He rides for NJ Skate Shop. The kid's a wizard on a skateboard. A lot of people don't know about him, but like he's legit, man. He's like a cheese and crackers type of dude. Like he's just ridiculous. And he just skates all the time. He's just a total skate rat. Like almost all the guys that are on my team now are all skate rats. So we have them. We have this kid, Aaron. He's a younger kid. He's from Middletown area, which is kind of where like Chris Cole is from. He's from like Langhorne area. And then there's Carlos Bamande. Skates regular and switch, but he's got this really weird like this just crazy style. Like you'd see his skating, you're just like wow, you know. So been developing and working with him. So that's been pleasurable. We have this a young girl who's been skating with us too, Ashley. She's 13 years old and can already do kickflip front boards on rails already. Oh yeah, she's a beast. So
that's so sick.
We're developing her, so that's been really fun. And then we have Shane Colville. I don't know if you've ever heard of Shane Colville. He was he grew up with Chris Cole and Tom Asta, so he's like in his 30s, like maybe 31, 32, 30, maybe 33, and he just has that like perfect foot, like he flips boom in. So like everybody brings something different. So I'm looking forward to working with them this summer, doing some trips, doing some demos with the guys, and just getting them acclimated to what it's all about. Because, you know, some of them have never done that type of stuff before. Some of them, like Shane has, you know, and that. But a lot of the younger guys have never had that experience. So I'm trying to give them like, because they see everything through YouTube and all that. So it's like it's time to get out into the real world again, shake hands, and get people stoked. So I'm really excited about that.
That'll really help them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially if they want to pursue being a skateboarder and
Absolutely.
doing it. You
and
know?
then they'll realize how much effort it takes. Because a lot of kids are like, "Oh, well, I'm doing all this hard work," and I'm like, "You guys have no idea what hard work means. I mean, you have to sacrifice so much more than you might be willing to give.
Yeah, it's
to
a lot.
be able to do this. You know it.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in that journey. So we're developing the stuff for one. I got some new boards coming out, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's oneskateboardco.com. Still developing the new website and everything. So, but it's doing its thing.
That's right. Are you on social with it?
Yeah. So we're on that too, like on Instagram and stuff. And then Arjun's doing his YouTube channel as well. So he's doing like trick tips, and he just got back from California doing stuff with Dan Corrigan.
Yeah, Dan's the man.
Yeah, Dan. I've known Dan forever as well. So
he's unbelievable too.
He is. He's always been a freak of nature within regards to his skateboarding ability. He just sees stuff that nobody else sees.
Yeah.
So, you know, trying to get the guys and gals exposed to that stuff. So we got that. And then I got stuff going on with our Skateboard Academy. Me and Ronnie Gordon have been palling up for the last 5 years. He's been helping me with it. Something I started in 2006. Started was an inner city skateboarding project where we're getting kids who never would have gotten exposed to skateboarding before. We used different things, like it was based off their behavior or like their grades or just like their effort, just a general effort. And then they were able to come and skate with me. And we saw it was paying dividends, so we kept doing it. And it was one of those things that started for 10 weeks, and here we are in 2022, and it's still going. And it's changed from the Gear for GROMs program to the Skateboard Academy, and we work with Parks and Recreation. So we're doing like a skate camp for kids from 12 and under for the inner city youth, and making it accessible for them. Right now, Parks and Rec doesn't have any money. They used to be subsidized. So it used to be like $60 for the whole week of skate camp. So now it has to be a little bit more now, but it's only $150, and there's different ways that the kids can get scholarships to attend. So we have, we do from 5 to 12 on those, and then Ronnie Gordon's running his skate camps this year. So we do a travel skate camp. So they all meet at our facility, they warm up, and then they go to all the area spots, or they go to some of the best skate parks in around the area. And Ronnie is their guide. And Ronnie, as you know, Ronnie's fundamentals in skating are just ridiculous.
That's awesome.
And so he takes them on that journey, and we have vans and stuff that he takes them all around the city or into Jersey. And once in a while we'll do like a trip down to Maryland or something like that too, to go visit the guys at Charm City or something. Every week is different. Yeah. And he ran Woodward for a long time as well. So he knows what it takes, and he keeps it fun with him because he's a teacher as well. So he's a woodshop teacher, so he's doing that.
Solid human.
He is. I've known Ronnie for many moons, and next time I'm going to tell you how I met him first, because that story is crazy. If you know anything about Ronnie, and the way I met him was just so over the top, Ronnie. It's ridiculous. So we'll wait for the next time for saying that. Yeah, that was part 2. So we got that going. So just doing the stuff for the Skateboard Academy, and we're starting to do shows again. So
right.
Yeah. So
people need it after the pandemic and the chaos and everyone getting political and racist. Like, let's get back to just having fun again.
I'm telling you, and I'll tell you what. Like the shows that I've done since we were able to go back into schools again, have just been over the top. The kids are just hungry for it, to the point where I have to stop the show because the kids are so wound up. And I'm like, all right, guys, you guys want us to step it up to the next level? All right, I need everybody crisscross applesauce. Everybody sit down, because we can't have any of you guys in the way, because like we've had people rush the we'll be in the middle and they're like on either side, and they've rushed us before, and we're like, this is dangerous, you know what I mean? So we get them the side, and then we continue, and then we jump over their teachers, and it's a good day. But it's but yeah, stuff like that. So it's like just getting that stuff going, and yeah, I mean, eventually we're working on some new stuff too, and maybe I'll have some more information next time. But I'm really been pushing for years right now is trying to start a skateboard school, like an alternative school where kids can go and get all their studies and stuff, but learn through doing. So it's more hands-on, as well as it's also more into their interest, whether it's through skateboarding, or we also do acrobatics at our facility. So maybe a combination of those types of things. But
it makes sense to add like some sort of physical element to it while you're learning, you know?
Absolutely.
More engaged while you're actually taking in the information.
Absolutely. And our friends over in Sweden, you know, the guys from Fryshuset and Briggerget, they're the ones who run like the big vert attack every year over there. They have 2 schools over there that do it, and it's showing dividends for kids who are at risk. And I mean, that's really the people that I want to work with the most, is because I've found such benefit. I was an at-risk kid. I think you were an at-risk kid.
Yeah.
And many of us have been at-risk kids at one time or another. You know, that's why I think we all found skateboarding. And I think if we can do that in these schools that are being underfunded and understaffed and whatnot, and give these kids an opportunity to grow beyond what has been statistically expected of them.
Yeah,
I think it gives them a good a good shot to be whoever they want to be. Because if they can take what they learned from skateboarding or acrobatics or whatever it is, and they can apply it to everything in their life, they'll be successful.
Totally.
You know, so those are the things I'm working on right now. So yeah, summer camp's coming up, doing some more shows, getting out there and stoking out the crowd. And then I'm going to go down in April. I'm heading down to DC to do a DC Wheels show with my man Jimmy Pelletier. So we'll do that. So it's all good.
It seems like everything that you've done in your life is leading you in an awesome direction. So keep killing it.
All right. Well, thank you much.
Thank you again, AJ.
Thank you, brother.
Dude.
All right.
Hell yeah.
I'm Anthony Shetler, and this is the All I Need Skate podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please let us know by subscribing, liking, and sharing an episode. Check out ALLiNEEDSKATE.com for epic skate videos of the crew, our skateboards, and apparel.